Chapter 732. Someone opened the cauldron cave abode. Qin Shu Jian instantly understood what was going on. At his level, as long as something related to him happened, he would have a premonition. Although the cauldron cave abode was left behind by a Dao fruit expert, Qin Shu Jian had also obtained a Dharma eye from there. In other words, he had some connections with the cauldron cave abode. Therefore, Qin Shu Jian had sensed at the moment the cave abode opened. Someone really didn't take my words seriously and opened the cauldron cave abode without permission. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. In order to prevent someone from opening the cauldron cave abode without permission, Qin Shu Jian had made some things very clear. However, he still didn't expect it. Someone really dared to go against him and open the cauldron cave abode without permission. The other party's actions meant that they didn't take him, the Emperor of Heaven, seriously. If he didn't deal with this matter, the heavenly court's prestige would be weakened in the future. The people in the Great Thousand Worlds shouldn't have the guts to go against the heavenly court. After all, even if they guessed that there was a great opportunity behind the cauldron cave abode, they wouldn't dare to take the risk. After all, the heavenly court was now the ruler of the Great Thousand World, and the 4 continents were under the heavenly court's control. It was easy for Qin Shu Jian to connect the dots to the players. No one else would have the guts to take the risk except for the players.
Soon.
He calmed his mind and held the seal in his hand, using the heavenly court's providence to calculate the exact location of the cauldron cave abode. Divination, calculation, prying into the secrets of the heavens. This method wasn't very popular in the current era, but it was a powerful method in the third era. Qin Shu Jian was quite proficient in this. In just 15 minutes, he calculated the location of the cauldron cave abode. So, it's in the fallen immortal realm. Qin Shu Jian was very familiar with this place. He and Emperor Zhao were also there, and they had challenged the emperors of all races. However, Qin Shu Jian did not expect that Huading's cave mansion would open in the fallen immortal realm. After all, he had opened Huading's cave mansion in the Undying Plain. The Undying Plains was located in the eastern continent. The fallen immortal realm was the intersection point of the 4 continents. If it was slightly further out, it would already be out of the eastern continent. The person who left behind the magnificent cauldron seemed to have prepared a lot of backup plans. He didn't put all his eggs in one basket. One was the Undying Plains and the other was the fallen immortal region. If the 3rd bronze token still exists, should it be in some other place? Qin Shu Jian revealed a meaningful smile. In the next instant, he said calmly, I said, I should be in the fallen immortal realm. After saying this, Qin Shu Jian disappeared from the heavenly palace. The scene changed and soon, they appeared in the fallen immortal realm. He had just entered the fallen immortal domain. Everything about the fallen celestial realm appeared in his mind. Qin Shu Jian took another step forward, and the scene changed. He saw 2 people entering the stone tablet. I'm too late. Seeing someone enter, Qin Shu Jian frowned slightly. However, there was nothing he could do about it. Due to the appearance of the magnificent cavern, he needed time to deduce its exact location. Therefore, he was delayed for a while. On the stone tablet, a vortex appeared. Qin Shu Jian did not enter the whirlpool. Instead, he stood in place and waited. The first time he entered the magnificent cavern mansion, he didn't know what was going on, so he recklessly entered someone else's territory. But things were different now. Qin Shu Jian was aware that there was an expert behind the cauldron immortal cave, so he would not easily take the risk. All he had to do was wait where he was. When the people who entered the cave came out, the result was the same. I want to see who opened the cave abode of Huading without permission. At the same time, let me see if the person who left the cave abode of Huading is a friend or foe. Qin Shu Jian looked at the stone tablet indifferently. He stood still and did not move. This was because opening the cave didn't cause too much of a commotion. Moreover, there were also remnants of the Emperor's power in the fallen immortal domain. Even when the cave was completely opened, no one noticed it. On the other side, in the magnificent cauldron immortal cave, what appeared in front of Zhuang Yan and Zhonghua were 2 stone doors. The earth door, the human door. Zhuang Yan smiled. There must be different opportunities behind the two stone doors. Since there are two of us, let's just enter one stone door each. Which door do you want to enter?
Zhonghua asked.
It was reasonable for each of them to enter one stone door each. However, there were two stone doors, so the things behind them must be different. How to choose was also a problem. Hearing this, Zhuang Yan pointed at the human door on the right. I'll enter the human door. Okay, then I'll enter the earth door. Zhonghua nodded. Then, the two of them pushed open the stone door and walked in. Behind the earth door, there was a secret room that was neither big nor small. Walking into the secret room, Zhonghua looked around. Soon, he saw everything in the secret room. Finally, his gaze stopped on a long sword. Strictly speaking, it was a stone sword. The stone sword was inserted in the middle of the secret room. No one knew how long it had been there. Zhonghua tried to use the insight technique to look at it, but he could not see any attributes of the stone sword. Driven by curiosity, he walked directly to the stone sword. As soon as he got close, a desolate and ancient aura spread out from the stone sword. It made Zhonghua's heart tremble. He actually had the illusion that he wanted to die here. This feeling, not only did it not make him feel afraid, but it made him even more excited. What a powerful divine weapon! The more extraordinary the aura emitted by the stone sword, the more it proved that it was an extremely powerful divine weapon. More importantly, the shape of the stone sword was very similar to the legendary Zubing. Thinking of Zubing, Zhonghua's heart trembled again. Could it be that the treasure in the earth door is a Zubing? Zubing. That was an existence that was above the Tao artifact. Among the thousands of races in the 4 major continents, the only race that truly had a Zubing was the human race. Thus, it could be seen. How precious was the Zubing? If the stone sword was really the Zubing, then he would have made a fortune. Even though Zhonghua was mature, he found it difficult to remain calm at this moment. It was really the Zubing. The resources to cultivate to the 10th level of the celestial being realm were incomparable. Let's not talk about anything else. If he were to take out his ancestral armaments to exchange, he would be able to obtain enough resources to break through to the true immortal realm. Moreover, with the Zubing in hand, no matter how much he grew in the future, the Zubing would be able to keep up with his footsteps and play an important role. For a moment, Zhonghua was so excited that his body trembled slightly. After a long time, he forced himself to calm down a little. He reached out and grabbed the hilt of the stone sword. Then, he pulled it out forcefully. The stone sword was pulled out from the ground. A terrifying aura was emitted from it, causing the entire stone room to become stagnant. Zhonghua felt that his body had been locked down by a powerful aura, imprisoning him on the spot. The powerful aura enveloped him. It was as if there were countless threads drilling into his body, searching for something. On the other side, Zhuang Yan entered the human door. The scene he saw was exactly the same as what Zhonghua saw. He saw the stone sword in the human door. Just as he pulled out the stone sword, a powerful aura spread out and imprisoned him on the spot. 2 secret rooms. The same scene. Suddenly, an indifferent voice echoed in the stone rooms on both sides. Your talent is not bad, but 2 people are too many. I only need 1 person. Well, then I'll eliminate the worst one. The voice seemed to have made a decision. At this moment, in the human door, Zhuang Yan's eyes revealed a look of horror. His body suddenly exploded, and his flesh and blood scattered in the stone room. Then it was absorbed by the stone sword. At this moment, Zhonghua also felt that something bad was going to happen. There was a look of panic in his eyes. He desperately wanted to circulate the true essence in his body, but it was like a clay ox entering the sea. There was no movement at all. At this moment, a powerful thought rose from the stone sword and directly broke into Zhonghua's sea of consciousness. In the sea of consciousness, there was a spiritual deity suppressing it. It was the spiritual deity that Zhonghua gave birth to. In front of the spiritual deity, there was a proud and aloof figure standing there.
Then,
under Zhonghua's horrified gaze, that person directly reached out and grabbed his spiritual deity. Then he opened his mouth and swallowed it. In the secret room, the stagnant space had begun to flow again. A faint smile appeared on Zhonghua's face. This body's aptitude is not bad. It's qualified to be trained well. After waiting for so many years, the second batch of people has finally entered Huading Cave Mansion. Thinking of the first person to enter Huading Cave Mansion, the smile on Zhonghua's face immediately faded. That person's heaven's secret is deceived. He is either the reincarnation of a Dao fruit-level existence, or he is somewhat related to the Dao fruit. I wonder what the situation is now. It was also because he sensed that the first person to enter Huading Cave Mansion was not simple. Therefore, Zhonghua did not possess him. He casually gave him some benefits and sent him out. Then, he waited for the second batch of people to enter Huading Cave Mansion.
Fortunately,
in about 10 years, the second batch of people entered the Cauldron Cave Mansion. The speed of time exceeded Zhonghua's expectations. He had originally planned to wait for millions of years, or even billions of years, but he did not expect that it would be so easy to wait for the day to come.
Then,
Zhonghua said indifferently, "Sword come." The stone sword in the secret room of the human gate immediately sensed something. It tore the void in front of it and escaped into it. In the secret room of the earth gate, the void tore open, and a stone sword appeared from inside. The two stone swords met, and the sword body trembled violently. Then, countless cracks appeared on the sword body, and it shattered inch by inch. The stone on the surface shattered, revealing the sword body that emitted a cold light. Then, the two long swords turned into dragons, entangled with each other, and merged in the secret room. Soon, the two long swords disappeared, and only a long sword that emitted a cold light slowly fell in front of Zhonghua. On the sword body, it had its own Dao rhythm, and the overflowing sword energy could easily tear the void apart. Zhonghua suddenly opened his mouth and swallowed the long sword.
Then,
he took a step and disappeared from the secret room. Outside the fallen immortal domain, Zhonghua stepped out of the void with his hands and feet, and his face was full of arrogance. Looking at the bright moonlight outside, he could not help but laugh out loud. Ha ha ha, countless years have passed, and I finally have the chance to see the light of day again. In this life, I will definitely reach the peak and suppress all the enemies of the ages.
His voice was hearty.
His voice reverberated throughout the fallen celestial realm, causing even the void to tremble. At this moment, a faint voice came from beside him. "Is that so?" The simple words were like a bolt from the blue in Zhonghua's ears. Without any hesitation, he turned his head and opened his mouth. A long sword shot out from his mouth, and it instantly tore the void apart. Endless sword energy burst out. Facing the long sword that was attacking him, Qin Shujian's expression did not change. With a flick of his finger, he shot out a finger force, which collided with the long sword. Under the effect of the vast power, the long sword let out a pleasant sound. Then, the sword shook, and a powerful sword energy burst out, forcibly breaking the finger force. The long sword did not stop, and it continued to attack him. "Very good." Qin Shujian nodded and shot out 2 more finger forces. In the end, the long sword's power was exhausted, and it had to fly back. Without any hesitation, Zhonghua grabbed the long sword and tore the void apart to escape. Just as he was escaping, the investiture of the gods came out, suppressed the void, and sealed him in place. Everything happened in the blink of an eye. From the moment Zhonghua came out of Huading's cave mansion to the fight, it was as fast as lightning. In the end, Qin Shujian made a move and suppressed him. The investiture of the gods came out of nowhere. Zhonghua's face was ugly, and he spat out a few words with difficulty. "Seal.
God.
List."
Then,
he looked at Qin Shujian, who was dressed in a green robe, and his pupils constricted again. "Emperor Qin, innate cardinal treasures are indeed extremely powerful. You're not even a perfected immortal, but you can resist 3 of my finger forces with a cardinal treasure. In terms of strength, I'm afraid even a middle 3 perfected immortal would be killed by your sword if he was careless. Qin Shujian exclaimed in admiration. Innate cardinal treasures. They were top existences in any epoch. For some reason, no innate cardinal treasures were born in this epoch. Instead, Zhu Bing existed. To a certain extent, innate cardinal treasures were equivalent to the 9 tribulations Zhu Bing. In the end, Qin Shujian looked at Zhong Hua with a faint smile on his face. I didn't expect that Huading's cave mansion was actually the Sword Master's backup plan. When I entered Huading's cave mansion last time, you didn't possess me. I guess you must have sensed something. In the end, Qin Shujian's eyes were filled with cold, killing intent. The Sword Master was a supreme existence in the second epoch. He was an expert comparable to the Saber Master. However, the problem was, the Saber Master was his ally, while the Sword Master was one of the few enemies. Many experts had died in the battle in the third epoch. He had died, the Saber Master had died, and now the Sword Master had died as well. However, Qin Shujian didn't expect Huading's cave mansion to be the Sword Master's backup plan. However, after thinking about it carefully, he understood. It didn't matter who had left the backup plan. What mattered was that he had blocked the other party. That was enough. Zhong Hua, who was also the Sword Master, looked indifferent, but there was deep fear in his eyes. Emperor Qin, do you really want to fight to the death with me? Sword Master, I'm confused by your words. Qin Shujian shook his head and said calmly, as early as the third epoch, you and I were already fighting to the death. If you hadn't stopped me, I might not have died. If we were in each other's shoes now, you wouldn't let me off either. However, I'm luckier than you. Now that the power of heaven and earth is in my hands, what do you have to fight me? There was absolute confidence in his calm words. Qin Shujian wasn't afraid that the Sword Master had any powerful backup plan that could save him from the current situation. Both of them had died in the third epoch. How could they have any backup plan? If there really was one, the Sword Master wouldn't have dared to attack when he first entered Huading's cave mansion. To put it bluntly, the other party didn't have the confidence to fight against the reincarnated Dao fruit expert, so he chose to retreat. Now, he was comparable to an upper 3 true immortal. Although the Sword Master had a connate cardinal treasure, he was only at the heavenly being realm. The difference in strength between the two was more than 1,000 miles. In Qin Shujian's eyes, the Sword Master was no different from a dead man. If it weren't for the fact that the other party was also a Dao fruit expert, he wouldn't even say a word. The Sword Master's heart sank. He didn't expect that so many changes had happened in this epoch. The heavenly court was established. The Emperor of Heaven ascended the throne. Moreover, the Emperor of Heaven was an old friend of the past. This was the most fatal part. In the Sword Master's eyes, Qin Shujian's strength was as unfathomable as an abyss. Although the other party hadn't recovered to his former peak, he was definitely comparable to him. However, the Sword Master didn't look panicked. As a former Dao fruit expert, his temperament was naturally incomparable to others. I don't want to fight you, but don't go too far. If you really want to fight, we'll just fight to the death. Fight to the death. Qin Shujian sneered. With your current strength, what right do you have to fight to the death with me? He was a shark net, and the other party was a fat fish. It was impossible for them to fight to the death. Hearing this, the Sword Master suddenly stretched out his palm, and a small sword suddenly appeared in his palm. The moment the small sword appeared, it emitted an earth-shattering sword chi that seemed to be able to tear the heavens and earth apart. That terrifying aura. It had already shot straight into the clouds, and the gods in the heavenly court who were in seclusion were directly awakened. It was different from the last time in the heavenly abyss. This time, the sword chi exposed by the Sword Master was not obstructed at all. What a powerful sword chi! This sword chi has definitely surpassed the level of a 9th level immortal. Xiao Qingfeng was shocked. He was truly frightened by the sword aura emitted by the sword aura. Ever since he reincarnated and started cultivating again. Xiao Qingfeng realized that many things were different from what he had originally imagined. He originally thought, with his identity as the reincarnation of immortal Haozong, it wasn't impossible for him to suppress thousands of clans a million years later. But after he reincarnated and started cultivating again, Xiao Qingfeng suddenly understood that there were still talents a million years later, and their strength was even stronger than his. First, there was Zhao Huang. Then there was Qin Shujian. Now there was another expert of unknown origin. And the sword qi emitted by the other party was more terrifying than the previous two combined. Above the rules. Such a thought suddenly appeared in Xiao Qingfeng's mind. If he guessed correctly, the existence emitting the sword qi must be an expert above the rules. But because the sword qi was too powerful, Xiao Qingfeng could not pinpoint the source of the sword qi. In front of this sword qi, not only Xiao Qingfeng was shocked, but the other gods could not help but feel fear in their hearts. Just as the gods were shocked, the Blade Master also directly woke up from his cultivation. The Sword Master's aura. Could it be that the Sword Master has also reincarnated in this era? He must have encountered some trouble to release his power at this time. The only person in this world who can threaten the Sword Master is the Qin Emperor. In an instant, the Blade Master had figured out the key point. Immediately after, a cold smile appeared on his face. It's just a bluff. I don't believe that you can retain the power of my previous life when I can't. The Qin Emperor is now an upper 3 levels true immortal. You definitely have no chance of survival. It's a pity that I'm about to break through and can't collect your corpse. Although he said so, but a carefree smile appeared on the Blade Master's face. He and the Sword Master were already sworn enemies in the Second Era. Later on, they had different ideologies and the conflict became more intense. In the Battle of the Third Era, the Blade Master actually died in the hands of the Sword Master indirectly. Of course, the Blade Master's death was also related to him. If there was someone who wanted the Sword Master's life the most, then the Blade Master. He could definitely be ranked in the top 3. In the fallen immortal realm, the Sword Master held a connate cardinal treasure in one hand and a small sword in the other. The terrifying sword qi was fluctuating and emitting a fatal threat. I don't want to fight to the death with you, but don't go too far. If you really want to fight, even if the Qin Emperor has a backup plan, it won't be easy to resist my power. I believe that there are many experts who have been reincarnated in this era. Why do you want to be entangled with me? The Sword Master returned to his original arrogant attitude and looked at Qin Shujian in front of him. He was already somewhat overbearing. Qin Shujian smiled and said, "Come on." "What do you mean?" The Sword Master looked puzzled, as if he didn't understand what Qin Shujian was talking about. "Didn't you want to fight to the death? I'd like to see how much power the former Sword Master has left. Come on, let me have a taste of your skills again." Qin Shujian stood with his hands behind his back. He lifted his chin slightly and looked at the Sword Master with disdain. Trying to gain something without risking anything? Did the Sword Master really think that he was scared? But to be honest, the Sword Master's current attitude was really good. If he didn't know the Blade Master's power, he might have been scared by the Sword Master. But now, Qin Shujian expressed his disdain in his heart. The Sword Master's face turned cold and he said, "Qin Emperor, do you really want to do this? Don't talk nonsense. I'll tell you straight, I don't have the power of the Third Era. If the sword qi in your hand is real, I believe it won't be a problem to kill me. Come on, what are you hesitating for?" As Qin Shujian spoke, he approached the Sword Master step by step. The Sword Master's heart trembled. However, a fierce look appeared on his face. "You forced me to do this." He didn't finish his words. The sword qi suddenly weakened a little. Then, in their eyes, the shocking sword qi fell little by little. The small sword condensed in the Sword Master's palm also seemed to have exhausted its power and directly burst like a bubble. The scene fell into a strange silence. The Sword Master's arrogant face stiffened. He didn't know whether to leave or not. He didn't expect that. After so many years, the backup plan that he had left behind could not even last long in a basic situation. Now, the sword qi was broken. His original plan to scare Qin Shujian away had completely failed. Qin Shujian shook his head and sneered. Sword Master, you have a great reputation. Now you can only use this method. What a pity you came out a few years later. If you could come out a few years later, I might not be able to deal with you. There's a good saying, everything is fate. It's not up to people. Today you should die. Qin Shujian's smile disappeared. His face was indifferent. He raised his hand. It was as if it encompassed the entire universe as it pressed down on the Sword Master. Facing such an attack, the Sword Master only felt endless pressure from all directions. He raised the long sword in his hand and slashed out. The sword chi that had been hidden for countless years burst out. Boom! The sword chi tore the sky and the earth, forcibly tearing a hole in the suppressing power. But the moment the power was torn, the Sword Master was completely covered by the energy palm. The body that had just been possessed didn't resist at all and was forcibly destroyed. The moment the body was destroyed, a spiritual deity escaped. The investiture of the gods that had suppressed the void suddenly fell and forcibly suppressed the spiritual deity. Qin Shujian took a step forward and slashed the god-slayer. The void collapsed and disappeared. The spiritual deity froze in the air. When the wind-like power blew past, it disappeared without a trace like dust. Hum. The long sword cried sadly, as if it was sad for the Sword Master's death. Then, the long sword broke through the void and was about to leave this place. How could Qin Shujian still leave with such a supreme treasure? As he raised his hand, a terrifying aura shot out from his finger and landed directly on the sword. What a terrifying power! It didn't make the long sword break. Instead, it made the sword tremble and buzz. Sharp sword chi overflowed from it, trying to annihilate all the attacks. Seeing this, Qin Shujian was neither hurried nor slow. His attacks didn't stop for a moment. An innate supreme treasure. It was at least as powerful as the 9 tribulation Zubing. How could he let such a supreme treasure escape? The Sword Master had died, so he had to suppress the long sword no matter what. Even if he couldn't use it, he definitely couldn't let it fall into the hands of others. Innate supreme treasures were really too powerful. The Sword Master had just been reborn and wasn't strong enough. If the other party broke through to the true immortal realm, he didn't need to become a true immortal in the upper 3 tiers. He only needed to break through to the middle 3 tiers. Qin Shujian wasn't confident that he could make the other party stay. If the other party was in the same realm as him, there was a possibility that he would be killed. The strong were particular about the power belonging to themselves, but it didn't mean that any external help was useless. On the contrary, if the strong had a powerful supreme treasure, the power they could exert was even more terrifying. The Sword Master has already died. You're a supreme treasure that was born by heaven and earth. You never belonged to anyone. Why fight stubbornly for the sake of a dead Sword Master? Qin Shujian said indifferently. As he spoke, his attacks didn't stop at all. The powerful attacks didn't give the long sword any chance to escape. Qin Shujian knew very well that the long sword could hear what he said. A supreme treasure of this level. It was no longer a dead object, but equivalent to a powerful living creature. Submit to me, and I'll give you supreme honor. The Sword Master is already dead. There's no need for you to be so stubborn. Qin Shujian frowned slightly. But no matter what he said, the long sword ignored him. Seeing this, he stopped talking nonsense and attacked the long sword with all his strength, constantly wearing down the other party's power. After an unknown amount of time, the last wisp of sword chi was worn out. After a mournful cry, the long sword became completely silent. The long sword was silent. The originally white and cold body of the sword was now mottled with rust, making it look like a useless rusted sword instead of a top natural supreme treasure. Qin Shujian reached out and held the hilt. Looking at the rust on it, there was a look of regret in his eyes. A divine weapon defiled itself. Forget it. He shook his head, but also saw 2 vague words on the sword body. Scattered essence. He took out a cloth from the storage ring and carried the long sword on his back. A top innate supreme treasure was a top divine weapon. It was too dangerous to put it in the investiture of the gods. After all, if the other party caused trouble, the investiture of the gods would be damaged and destroyed. As for putting it in the sea of consciousness, it was even more dangerous. If a top supreme treasure without an owner was thrown into the sea of consciousness, Qin Shujian wasn't sure that he could be alert all the time.
So,
He could only carry it on his back. Only in this way could he ensure that the scattered essence wouldn't cause trouble. As for the divine weapon defiling itself, although Qin Shujian felt regretful, he didn't care too much about it. A top innate supreme treasure. Of course, he was very jealous. But Qin Shujian was used to using a long saber. If he used a sword, it would be a little awkward. The God-Slayer was not as good as the scattered essence, but as long as it was given time, it could also be upgraded. Speaking of which, compared to the previous few eras, there was another advantage in this era. Divine weapons could be upgraded, unlike the previous eras where there was no possibility of upgrading. From the moment heaven and earth gave birth to a divine weapon, no matter what level it would stay at that level. There was no way to break the shackles. In this era, although the divine weapons given birth to by heaven and earth weren't strong, there was room for upgrading. Especially Zubing. If it grew up in the future, it could be comparable to a top innate supreme treasure, or even surpass it. At this time, the God-Slayer, who stayed by Qin Shujian's side, also looked at the rusted sword with fear. Emperor of Heaven, what is a top innate supreme treasure? Why does it give me a strong feeling? After the 5 tribulations, Zubing. The God-Slayer didn't expect that one day he would meet a divine weapon that made him tremble. In front of the scattered essence, it reminded him of the extremely powerful Zubing he met when he had just been upgraded to Zubing. That's Zubing. It was the 6 tribulations Zubing. However, even with that being the case, the feeling that the 6 calamity ancestral armament gave off was not as intense as the feeling that the scattered light sword gave off. Qin Shujian said, top innate supreme treasures are natural treasures given birth to by heaven and earth in the previous eras. If I'm not wrong, it's probably equal to the 9 tribulations Zubing in this era. 9 is the limit. Top innate supreme treasures are the limit of the previous eras. Zubing's limit should be around the 9 tribulations. But seriously speaking, Zubing has the possibility of breaking the limit, but top innate supreme treasures don't. So, to some extent, you're much stronger than him. He sensed the God-Slayer's thoughts. Qin Shujian comforted him. Of course, he had to make Zubing happy. As for belittling the scattered essence, it was none of his business. After hearing Qin Shujian's words, the God-Slayer didn't speak, but the rusted sword on his back vibrated slightly to express his dissatisfaction. Qin Shujian turned a blind eye to this. Let's go. He casually put the God-Slayer and the investiture of the gods into a sea of consciousness. He glanced at the fallen immortal domain, which had become even more terrifying, and immediately flew away. In the heavenly court, the deities couldn't calm down for a long time. The sword energy shook the heavenly court, and no one could calm down. At this moment, they all gathered at the entrance of the heavenly palace, wanting to see Qin Shujian. But they were stopped by Nyodali. The Emperor of Heaven has gone out. You guys wait a little longer. Trespassing in the heavenly palace is a capital offense. Nyodali lay on the ground, struggling to lift his eyelids. After glancing at the deities, he said flatly. The earthly emperor couldn't help but ask, where did the Emperor of Heaven go? I don't know. Don't ask me. Nyodali replied casually. The deities were furious. Looking at the green ox in front of them, they had an impulse to skin him. A mere heavenly being dared to give them the cold shoulder. If it weren't for the fact that he was the Emperor of Heaven's mount, they would have already taught him a lesson. A mysterious expert had appeared. In addition, the Emperor of Heaven's departure made them think of many things. At this moment, the deities only wanted to know where Qin Shujian went and what happened. But Nyodali acted like a dead pig that wasn't afraid of boiling water, making them unable to do anything. whether it was the deities of the constellations or the imperial emperors of the 5 directions. The green ox in front of them didn't give them any face. Moreover, he was lying on the ground, not showing any respect at all. Brother Nyo, do you really have no news at all? I already said no. You're so annoying, Nyo Dali said unhappily. Even though the Zhao Emperor was very well-mannered, there was still some anger on his face. His calm gaze landed on Nyo Dali, and Nyo Dali suddenly felt an immense pressure. Inside the heavenly palace, Qin Shu Jian quietly returned to this place. At the same time, he was also aware of the commotion outside the palace. Qin Shu Jian was also a little annoyed by Nyo Dali's attitude. He was afraid that the deities wouldn't be able to hold back and would really kill the ox. In order to prevent the situation from worsening, Qin Shu Jian sat on the throne and spoke. His voice immediately reached the ears of the deities outside the palace. Come in, all of you. P.S. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 733. In the inner hall of the heavenly palace, the deities entered one by one. Greetings, Emperor of Heaven. You may dispense with the formalities. Thank you, Emperor of Heaven. The deities stood up. Immediately, the dog emperor stepped forward and said, Emperor of Heaven, not long ago, Sword Qi shot up into the sky from the 4 great continents and shook the heavenly court. I wonder if the Emperor of Heaven knows what happened? He did not immediately ask what to do. Instead, he wanted to understand the situation from Qin Shu Jian first. The mysterious expert appeared, and the sudden departure of the Emperor of Heaven. There were too many coincidences. The dog emperor had a premonition that the mysterious expert might be related to the celestial emperor in front of him. At this moment, the others also noticed that Qin Shu Jian was different. During the last meeting in the heavenly court, they were sure that he was not carrying a sword. But this time, this heavenly emperor was already carrying a long sword of unknown origin on his back. To be carried by the Emperor of Heaven, it was naturally not something ordinary. But although they were curious, no one dared to ask. Instead, they waited for the other party's answer. Qin Shu Jian said, an ancient expert reincarnated and recultivated. I have already killed him. You don't have to care. An ancient expert. Many people looked at each other. In their knowledge, an ancient expert was an expert from hundreds of thousands of years ago, or an expert from the ancient times. But no matter which era the expert was from, none of the deities had any way to link it to the shocking sword Qi that had appeared just now. Even Xiao Qingfeng. They all had puzzled expressions on their faces. He was the reincarnation of an ancient expert. But he was very sure that there was no such expert in the ancient times. As for whether there was one in the ancient times, he was not sure. But heaven and earth only existed for so long. If it was not an ancient expert, then it was almost certain that it was from the ancient times. Could it be the first demon emperor from the ancient times? But that can't be. I have never heard that the first demon emperor was a sword Dao expert. If he was not a sword Dao expert, how could he emit such a level of sword Qi? Xiao Qingfeng was not sure. Just as he was guessing, Emperor Zhao spoke. That sword Qi is earth-shattering. Even in ancient times, there might not have been an expert who could reach that level. I wonder where the ancient expert that the Emperor of Heaven spoke of came from? He didn't come from the primordial age, nor did he come from the primordial age. Naturally, you wouldn't know. Qin Shu Jian shook his head and said lightly, the universe has a beginning and an end. Every time a universe comes to an end, a new universe will be created. Every time a new universe is created until its end, I call it an era. That reincarnated ancient expert isn't an existence of this era. He's an expert from an era that was once ended. Ji Yuan. Everyone's expression changed drastically. No one would have thought that the so-called ancient expert mentioned by Qin Shu Jian was much more ancient than they had imagined.
No.
Not only was it more ancient than they had imagined, it was completely beyond their imagination. The word epoch was a very unfamiliar word to anyone. Even an ancient expert like Xiao Qingfeng had never heard of the existence of Ji Yuan. As for the others, it was even more impossible for them to know about it. In the minds of the deities, this universe, as well as the Great Thousand World, was the beginning of everything. As for what it was like before the Great Thousand World and the universe appeared, in their opinion, it should have been a piece of chaos.
No one had thought about it.
Before the universe appeared, it was not chaos, but the previous universe. The earth-shattering sword Qi was an expert who was born in the universe that was once destroyed. At this moment, even Emperor Zhao and Xiao Qingfeng could no longer remain calm. This was because, to them, what Qin Shujian had said was completely out of their minds. Universe.
Ji Yuan.
One of them had received the legacy of the ancient heavenly court, while the other was the reincarnation of an ancient immortal master. Both of them were confused. The demon emperor took a deep breath and spoke in a trembling voice. Emperor of Heaven, what you mean is that our universe is not the only universe. Long before our universe appeared, there were other universes. In that case, does the universe also have an end? He had always thought that the universe was eternal and indestructible. Even if heaven and earth were to be destroyed one day, the universe would not be destroyed. At most, an expert would use great means and rely on the universe to create a new heaven and earth. However, he had never thought about it. It turned out that the universe would also be destroyed one day. Nothing can be eternal and indestructible, not even the universe. However, you don't need to know too much about Ji Yuan now. When you have a chance to reach the peak of the ninth heaven immortal realm in the future, I will let you know. Qin Shujian did not say much about Ji Yuan because there was no need to. For the deities of the heavenly court now, Ji Yuan's matter was too far away. Without reaching the Dao fruit realm, they did not have the qualifications to experience the destruction of an era. After all, true immortals only had a lifespan of around 120,000 years. Qin Shujian did not say anything. Although the deities were curious, they could only forcibly suppress the urge to ask. Just as they were all silent, Qin Shujian said, "There are very few experts who can truly survive the end of the universe and still have the means to be reborn in the next era. You don't need to worry too much. Moreover, even if they are reborn, they might not be as strong as you. There are some things that simply look at one's aura is useless. Only when you truly fight will you be able to see the other party's depths. Right now, the Heavenly Court's primary goal is to deal with the demons of the void. There is not much time left for you, so cherish it. Emperor of Heaven is right." The deities bowed respectfully, then tactfully retreated. When they left the inner palace and passed through the gates of the outer palace, many of them coldly glanced at Niodali, snorted loudly, then left with a flick of their sleeves. In the Heavenly Court, there were not many who dared not give them face. Niodali was the most unforgettable one. However, although the deities were dissatisfied with the other party's identity, there was nothing they could do.
Tise.
Niodali forced his eyelids open and sneered disdainfully. Then he closed his eyes and went back to sleep. This scene, the deities who had not completely left were so angry that their lungs almost exploded. It was the first time they had seen such an arrogant mount. No one could understand why the celestial emperor would find such a disgraceful thing to be his mount, given his status. A bunch of trash. If you have the guts, then come and beat me. If not, then obediently scram. When this old bull becomes an immortal, I will hammer each and every one of you to death. Niodali's heart was full of disdain. It was a complete waste to not use a backer. He now understood that with his current identity, there was no need for him to be a yes-man at all. As long as the Emperor of Heaven did not fall, who could do anything to him? Niodali was now seriously arrogant. In addition, he had now touched the bottleneck of the true immortal realm. It would not be long before he became an immortal, so he was full of confidence. Inner Palace of the Heavenly Palace. Qin Shujian also knew about the commotion outside and could not help but secretly shake his head. He really is not afraid of being beaten to death. However, with his current strength, ordinary true immortals can't do anything to him. If they really want to fight, it would not be a problem for a heavenly being to kill an immortal. Immediately after, Qin Shujian could not be bothered with Niodali. Instead, He tore open the void and entered the mother stream. Once again, he entered the mother stream. There were still waves surging. However, after his inner world was upgraded to a medium-class world, his strength had improved by leaps and bounds. The waves in the mother stream came crashing. Qin Shu Jian did not move at all. Purely relying on the aura that was emitted from his body, he suppressed the waves. He walked leisurely in the mother stream as if he was taking a stroll. One by one, the rules swept past him. However, Qin Shu Jian did not enter easily. Because those rules were too small, it proved that almost no one followed those rules. No one followed the rules. There was only one reason for most of them, and that was because the path was too difficult. Since it was a difficult path, Qin Shu Jian would not waste his time and insist on fighting with those small rules. The rules that his inner world lacked now were as vast as the sea. He could use an extremely short period of time to comprehend all the rules that were easy to comprehend. It would be a waste of time to comprehend all the easy rules in the future. It would be the time to comprehend those difficult rules. However, the problem was, the mother stream was vast and boundless. However, although there were many true immortals born in the upper-class world, compared to the rules in the mother stream, the number was too small. Therefore, it was not an easy task for Qin Shu Jian to find such a rule. It could take a day. It could also take half a month. Qin Shu Jian wandered in the mother stream. Finally, a long river of about 70 to 80 feet long appeared in front of him. Without hesitation, he forcefully tore the long river of rules and barged in. Heavenly Court. In the hall, the demon emperor, who was absorbing the power of the stars to cultivate, suddenly felt his heart skip a beat and anger appeared on his face. Someone actually dares to barge into my rules. Could it be that they want to snatch the paths? He was the imperial emperor of the 5 directions after all. In the heavenly court, apart from a few people, he had the highest status. Even if he was not the strongest, the demon emperor was confident that he could be ranked in the top 10, or even the top 5. Under such circumstances, there were still some ignorant people who wanted to snatch the path from him. The demon emperor felt that if he did not make a move, he would be letting down his status. Instantly, he tore through the void and entered the long river of laws. The long river of rules surged violently. The void suddenly collapsed, and the demon emperor walked out from it. Who is so bold to barge in? Before he could finish his words, he was stunned when he saw the person in the long river of rules. Emperor of Heaven. The demon emperor was shocked. He never thought that the person who broke into his rules would be Qin Shu Jian. If it was an ordinary person, even if it was someone he knew, the demon emperor would attack in anger. But facing Qin Shu Jian, he did not have the guts. The difference in strength between the two sides was too great, to the point that there was no way to make up for it. If he attacked without permission, he might be killed on the spot. He forced his trembling heart to calm down. The demon emperor swallowed his saliva with difficulty and asked, "Emperor of Heaven suddenly entered my rules. I wonder, what is the matter?" Snatch the path. That was impossible. He was walking on the Golden Rock Emperor's rules, and such rules were not that powerful at the moment. Among the gods of the heavenly court, there were many existences who were stronger than him, but there were still quite a few. If Qin Shu Jian really wanted to snatch the path, there was no need to stare at his Golden Rock Emperor's rules. Seeing the demon emperor who was frightened by him, Qin Shu Jian was speechless. He did not expect it himself. It was such a coincidence that he entered the demon emperor's rules. Qin Shu Jian said, "Emperor Nanyan, do not panic. I came here this time to spar with you. Don't worry, just fight with me. As for the outcome, I will not do anything to you. But when we fight, if you dare to go easy on me, then don't blame me for not giving you face." Qin Shu Jian's expression suddenly turned cold. It was good that the rules had an owner. If he could fight with the owner of the rules, then it would be easier to understand the rules. The last time he fought with the Sword Emperor, it quickly nurtured the seed of the Sword Tao. At this moment, Qin Shu Jian already had other ideas in his mind. The heavenly court has more than 300 true immortals. If I fight with each of them in the river of rules, then it will not take long for me to nurture the same rules in my inner world. This way, I can at least enter the middle stage of the middle world, and my strength will naturally enter the 8th level of immortal. 8th level of immortal. That was only Qin Shujian's evaluation of his own realm. If he really wanted to compare strength, even a 9th level of immortal would definitely not be his opponent. At that point, he was confident that he could use his own methods to deal with those demon emperors. Qin Shujian pondered in his heart. On the other side, the demon emperor was stunned by his words. The demon emperor did not expect this at all. Qin Shujian's purpose of entering his rules was only to spar with him. Emperor Nanyan, make your move. Qin Shujian recovered from his thoughts, and then his gaze fell on the demon emperor. Seeing this, the demon emperor could not refuse and could only nod. Then I will offend you. Falling out of the void. The demon emperor's aura was erratic, and it was obvious that he had consumed a lot of energy. But the consumption of his body was not as strong as the shock he felt in his heart. Recalling the battle in the River of Rules, he was in a daze and did not recover for a long time. Is that the strength of the Emperor of Heaven? After a long time, the demon emperor sighed heavily. Although he had long known that his strength was far inferior to Qin Shujian's, he still had a long way to go. But he had never thought about it. The gap between the two was already so big. In the battle in the River of Rules, the demon emperor attacked with all his strength, while Qin Shujian did not move at all. It was equivalent to standing there and taking a beating. Even so, the demon emperor could not hurt him at all. Such a result was much more unbearable than being suppressed by Qin Shujian. The two sides were not on the same level at all. That feeling. It made the demon emperor feel that he was just a young child, fighting against an adult with his bare hands. His head was pressed down by the other party, and no matter how hard he tried, he could not hurt him. My strength is still too weak. He had completely woken up. Originally, after obtaining the deity position of Emperor Nanyan, the demon emperor's strength had been increased by a lot by the investiture of the gods. Therefore, in his heart, he had also become much more confident. But the battle in the River of Rules had made the demon emperor completely recognize himself. His strength. In front of a true expert, he was still too weak. He shook his head. The demon emperor immediately entered seclusion. What was a first-level immortal? Even if he broke through to the 2nd or 3rd level immortal, it would not be of any use in front of the Emperor of Heaven. Only when he advanced to the 3rd level of the true immortal realm would he be qualified to be valued by the other party. As for a real fight, as for winning, the demon emperor did not dare to think about it for the time being. Some people were sad, while others were happy. After the Golden Rock Emperor's rules were born in the inner world, Qin Shujian directly retreated, not making things too difficult for the demon emperor. It seems that this method is indeed feasible. As long as I find the true immortals of the heavenly court to fight, I can use this opportunity to comprehend their rules. Qin Shujian had a smile on his face. This method was much better than painstakingly comprehending the rules without an owner. At this moment, in the inner world, the Golden Rock Emperor's rules were born. The power of heaven and earth increased by a bit, and the world expanded again. At the same time, the moment the Golden Rock Emperor's rules were born, a ray of dim light scattered down from the Mother River of Rules and landed on the top of a mountain. At the top of the mountain that was originally empty, there was a huge pale golden egg at some point in time. The spiritual energy of heaven and earth that was quietly flowing in the surroundings was now attracted and gathered towards the huge egg. The changes in the inner world. It also attracted Qin Shujian's attention. He directly separated a wisp of divine consciousness and entered the inner world, then appeared beside the huge egg. The egg of the Golden Rock race. Qin Shujian looked at the huge egg in front of him in surprise. After comprehending the Golden Rock Emperor's rules, the inner world used the power of the rules to breed the Golden Rock race's egg.
It could be said that,
as long as the huge egg transformed, the inner world would give birth to the first golden-winged rock. The huge egg in front of him. It made Qin Shujian think of something. The Golden Rock Emperor's rules can directly breed the Golden Rock race's egg. If I comprehend the human emperor's rules, perhaps the inner world can directly breed the human race. The birth of the human race. Qin Shujian also had some understanding. In the first era, there were experts who molded Earth to create humans. But in other eras, the human race was born naturally after the birth of heaven and earth, and after the appearance of the human race. Only then could heaven and earth give birth to the rules that belong to the human race. In other words, under normal circumstances, the race should come first, and the rules should come second. Because a lot of the credit for the perfection of heaven and earth came from the living beings. But now, Qin Shujian had thought of a different way to solve this problem. That was to put the rules in front and the living beings behind. Although he had no way to move all the rules of the 10,000 races of heaven and earth, it was definitely not a problem to use the opportunity to comprehend a part of them. In this way, the evolution of the inner world would directly enter a soaring stage. The breeding of the Golden Rock race still needs some time. I also hope that there is still a place for the human race in the inner world. In this way, comprehending the human emperor's rules is an urgent matter. Qin Shujian took a deep look at the huge egg, then left the inner world. He didn't kill the huge egg. Whether it was the Golden Rock race or the other races, the living beings born and bred in the inner world were actually his children to a certain extent. Of course, Qin Shujian was a human himself, so naturally, he was more inclined to the human race. But this didn't mean that he would weaken the other races. After leaving the inner world, Qin Shujian immediately tore the void and entered the mother stream of laws again. Normally speaking, the Golden Rock Emperor's rules could give birth to the Golden Rock race, so only the human emperor's rules could give birth to the human race. Emperor Zhao followed the human emperor's rules.
In this way,
Qin Shujian could only start from the human emperor's rules. Only the emperor's rules of each race were the true foundation of a race. On the contrary, the human emperor's rules were more like rules that completely relied on the human race. If the human race was prosperous, the human emperor's rules would be strong. If the human race declined, the human emperor's rules would also be weak.
Such a path.
Strictly speaking, this meant that there were limitless possibilities. The more powerful the human race was, the more terrifying Emperor Zhao's strength would be. Although he followed the traditional path in terms of strength, he was no weaker than an expert who followed the path of physical sanctification. If there was a day, if the human race became a supreme race, then Emperor Zhao's strength might even completely surpass that of a physical sanctification expert. I'm the strongest in the path of evolving heaven and earth. As for the path of physical sanctification, the Blade Master and Xiao Chengfeng are the strongest. The Blade Master was an expert of the Second Era. His understanding of physical sanctification was not something that Xiao Chengfeng could compare with. So his true strength should be better than Xiao Chengfeng's. As for Emperor Zhao, the human emperor's rules made him the ceiling of the traditional path. If he wanted to be the strongest in any path, he would have to do so. It was not an easy task. Qin Shujian thought about this in his heart. He had already walked a long distance in the mother stream of laws. As a human, Qin Shujian had a natural sense of the human emperor's rules. Not to mention, he had seen the human emperor's rules before and vaguely remembered its aura. It was not difficult to find it now. Just as Qin Shujian entered the mother stream of laws to find the human emperor's rules, the Moon Clan, the Moon Empress, had officially reached the final step. The ancient true immortals of the Moon Clan sacrificed themselves and poured the power of the moon into her body, allowing her to completely transform. In other words, the Moon Empress now. She already had the qualifications to become an immortal. Ben Huang will never forget your sacrifice. The Moon Empress glanced at the 3 broken ice coffins with a strong light in her beautiful eyes. Sacrificing 3 ancient true immortals, allowing the Moon Clan to give birth to a true immortal. Of course, such a transaction was not a loss. The Moon Empress was glad that the previous Moon Empress relied on herself to become an immortal. Otherwise, it would not be her turn to enjoy this benefit. It was as if she had made a decision. The Moon Empress took a step and disappeared into the bright moon. In the void, the mother stream of laws spread. Moonlight suddenly sprinkled down from the sky that was originally clear and bright. A beautiful figure emerged from the mother stream of precepts and opened up her own path of precepts. The Moon Empress has become an immortal. Xiao Qingfeng felt something and immediately saw the figure walking out of the mother stream of laws. Although Shi Ling's death cleared his grudge with the Moon Clan, in his heart, he was still very dissatisfied with the Moon Clan. Now that he saw the current Moon Empress become an immortal, Xiao Qingfeng felt a little unhappy. The current Moon Empress is not strong. How could she become an immortal so quickly? A few days ago, there was a lightning tribulation that struck the Moon Clan. Could it be related to this? He was not a stupid person. Combined with the phenomenon of the Moon Clan and the current Moon Empress becoming an immortal, Xiao Qingfeng quickly figured out the crux of the matter. Obviously, the ancient true immortal of the Moon Clan broke the seal to give birth to a true immortal. The Moon Empress becoming an immortal was proof. Immortal Lord, do you want to kill her? The sky-breaking halberd asked murderously.
Kill the Moon Clan.
He also liked to do it. After all, the Moon Clan made his immortal lord look bad. To the sky-breaking halberd, they were also mortal enemies. Hearing this, Xiao Qingfeng shook his head. Now that the 10,000 races are united, attacking the Moon Clan will destroy the order of the heavenly court. The Emperor of Heaven will not sit by and do nothing. There is no need to pay such a price for a mere Moon Clan. Moreover, Shi Ling has already died. No matter how strong the current Moon Empress is, what can she do? If she wants to become an immortal, let her be. In the end, she won't be able to do much. Xiao Qingfeng now. He had completely stabilized at the second level of immortal. He had a feeling that in a few years he would be able to step into the third level of immortal. Looking at the Moon Clan again. Even if the Moon Empress succeeded, she would only be at the first level of immortal. It was almost impossible for her to threaten him. Then, Xiao Qingfeng looked away from the Moon Empress. She was just becoming an immortal. If not for the fact that she was the current Moon Empress of the Moon Clan, he would not even look at her. As for the others of the 10,000 races, although they were shocked, it did not cause too much of a shock. She was just a true immortal. There were many people who had become immortals in the past few years. With the order of the heavenly court, the Moon Empress did not have any twists and turns in becoming an immortal. It took her less than a day to successfully leave her own mark on the royal monument. Instantly, there was a natural phenomenon. The Moon Empress floated away from the Royal River and returned to the Moon Clan. In the Moon Palace, many elders of the Moon Clan bowed and congratulated in unison. My emperor has become a perfected immortal. Congratulations. Elders, please dispense with the formalities. The Moon Empress's beautiful face also inadvertently revealed a smile. She had become an immortal. It was less than half the half-year period that Qin Shujian had given her, and she had already become an immortal. According to the agreement, the position of the Moon Lord should also be hers. Once she obtained the position of the Moon Lord, the Moon Clan would truly begin to rise. Ben Huang is going to the heavenly court. I'll leave the matters of the Moon Clan to you guys. Don't cause any trouble, the Moon Empress said softly. Your Majesty, don't worry. We will definitely maintain order in the clan. That's for the best. The Moon Empress nodded and then left the Moon Palace. She could not wait to take over the deity position of the Moon Sovereign. Break through to the perfected immortal realm. It was not difficult to enter the heaven and earth astral wind layer. However, the Moon Empress herself was not completely sure where the heavenly court was located in the heaven and earth astral wind layer, so she could only wander around and search. Every time the heaven and earth astral wind blew, she had to deal with it carefully to prevent herself from being injured by the heaven and earth astral wind. The heavenly court can be built in the heaven and earth astral wind layer. The Emperor of Heaven's methods are extraordinary. The Moon Empress sighed. Without truly entering the heaven and earth astral wind layer, she would never understand how terrifying it was. although she had already become an immortal and could be considered a top expert in the 4 continents. However, in the heaven and earth astral wind layer, she still did not dare to be distracted. Even a perfected immortal had to be careful when dealing with such terrifying astral wind power. Otherwise, even if they did not die, it was inevitable that they would be severely injured. She knew how terrifying the heaven and earth astral wind was. The Moon Empress also understood how difficult it was to settle the heavenly court in such a dangerous place. For 2 whole days, she wandered in the heaven and earth astral wind layer. Finally, the Moon Empress found the location of the heavenly court. She saw thousands of palaces floating quietly in the heaven and earth astral wind layer. The terrifying heaven and earth astral wind power could not affect the palaces at all.
Not only that,
the heaven and earth astral wind layer, which was originally only white, now had different colors in the Moon Empress's eyes. Countless yellow clouds built bridges and roads, paved in the palaces. The heavenly court. The moment she saw the palaces, 2 words involuntarily appeared in the Moon Empress's mind. This was where the heavenly court was. Immediately, the Moon Empress entered the heavenly court. However, there were countless palaces and she did not know where Qin Shu Jian was. When she saw that in the middle of the palaces, there was a large palace that seemed to suppress the entire heavenly court, the Moon Empress understood that that place should be where the Emperor of Heaven was. And when she got closer, when she saw the green bull sleeping there, she was even more relieved. The Moon Empress of the Moon Clan is here to pay a visit to the Emperor of Heaven. I hope you can pass on a message. The Moon Empress walked to the door of the outer hall and said softly to Nyodali. Her voice was not loud, but in the quiet heavenly palace, it was especially obvious. Nyodali opened his eyes unhappily. The Emperor of Heaven is in seclusion and will not see anyone. If there's nothing else, go back and wait for the Emperor of Heaven to come out of seclusion next time. After saying that, he closed his eyes again. Only the Moon Empress was left standing there awkwardly. She could not leave either. She could not leave either. According to Qin Shu Jian, the other party only gave her half a year. If she went back because of this, she would miss the time and lose the deity position of the Moon Lord. That would be troublesome.
So,
the Moon Empress had to say again, Ben Huang is here on the order of the Emperor of Heaven. Please pass on a message. I already said that the Emperor of Heaven is in seclusion. Why do I have to pass on a message? Aren't you annoying? Nyodali opened his eyes wide and said in an unfriendly tone. The Moon Empress was choked. Her chest rose and fell violently, and her pretty face was slightly red.
She was not shy.
She was angry. What do you mean? I didn't ask you to do anything. I just asked you to pass on a message.
What kind of attitude is this?
The Moon Empress had just broken through to the true immortal realm, and she was very proud. Now that Nyodali had spoken ill of her, her joy was completely dispelled. Not only that, but she was also angry. If it were not for the fact that she was worried about his identity, the Moon Empress could not help but attack. She was not angry. There was nothing to be angry about with the bull. After comforting herself, the Moon Empress said coldly, I wonder when the Emperor of Heaven will come out of seclusion. Phew. Phew. There was a slight snoring sound, but there was no response. Seeing this, the Moon Empress's face turned completely black. As the Emperor of a clan, she also cared about her dignity. After encountering such things again and again, the Moon Empress did not want to talk to Nyodali anymore. However, she had finally come to the heavenly court. If she went back, she was not worried about missing the time.
So,
the Moon Empress ignored Nyodali and waited outside the heavenly palace. On the other side, Qin Shu Jian was already fighting in the Human Emperor's law. Different from other ordinary laws, the Human Emperor's law was the law that the human emperors of the past walked. There were countless powerhouses born in it, and there were even many true immortals in the upper 3 levels. The powerhouses born in this way were all transformed by the long river of laws to resist Qin Shu Jian, the intruder. Moreover, the long river of laws was even more ruthless. It forcefully raised the strength of the human emperor's shadow to an extremely high level. Although it could not be compared to the peak, it was not weak at all.
Boom.
Boom! The two figures fought together. Suddenly, one of the figures flew out. If one looked carefully, they would see that the figure that flew out looked exactly the same as the ancient Emperor Xia. And the person fighting with the ancient Emperor Xia was Qin Shujian.
Kill.
He took a step forward, suppressing the void and the world. His fist shattered the river of stars, and he was already charging toward Emperor Xia. Since entering the human emperor's law, even Qin Shujian himself had forgotten how many silhouettes of powerful human beings he had killed. The weak ones were comparable to middle 3 levels of true immortals, and the strong ones were comparable to upper 3 levels of true immortals. If he had not successfully advanced to a medium-class world, he would have definitely suffered a big setback in the human emperor's law. At this moment, Qin Shujian finally understood how dangerous those top laws were. In the past, he had only comprehended those laws that were neither strong nor weak. Even if there were obstacles, he could escape unscathed. However, if he had entered these top-notch laws right from the start, he might have died immediately. Boom! Emperor Xia's shadow had just raised his hand to block the attack, but it was a step too late. His body was directly torn apart by the violent power, turning back into law power and flowing into the long river. Soon, just a little more time, and I will be able to comprehend the human emperor's law. After killing Emperor Xia, Qin Shujian's aura was upright as he strode forward along the long river of laws. With his current strength, even if the ancient human emperor reappeared in his peak state, Qin Shujian was confident that he could kill him, not to mention that it was just a shadow of the ancient human emperor. Boom, boom, boom. Huge waves surged, as if it was the end of the world. Qin Shujian moved forward steadily, and with a wave of his hand, he extinguished countless waves.
Soon,
another shadow of the human emperor condensed. He did not even look and destroyed it with a punch with all his strength. After killing more than 10 shadows of the human emperor, a mysterious realization rose in Qin Shujian's heart. At the same time, in his inner world, the laws shook. P.S. Support the original version, Qidian Chinese Network, app, Qidian Book. I am decent. Chapter 734. The Law of the Human Emperor was born. Qin Shujian immediately entered his inner world. A chaotic beam of light shot down from the sky and landed on a hill. Qin Shujian immediately chased after the chaotic light and came to the hill. Chaos emerged. A vast amount of spiritual energy gathered. Qin Shujian looked at the chaotic gas that looked like a huge egg in front of him. He had a vague feeling in his heart. The human race is about to be born. The living beings of heaven and earth were all derived from heaven and earth. Whether it was the human race, whether it was the Golden Rock race or other races, there was no exception. It was just that during the process of nurturing, all kinds of changes occurred and different races were formed. But it was not that. Every race was bound to be born in the new era. Just like in the first era, there was no human race in heaven and earth, but there was a supreme expert who molded earth to create humans, causing the human race to be born in heaven and earth. As for the second era, and in the third era, there was no expert who molded earth to create humans. However, Qin Shujian was sure that there must be a human expert. At the moment when the universe was born, he left a part of his power to help heaven and earth create the human race. Otherwise, after several eras, it was impossible for the human race to be born in every era. For example, among the thousands of races in the current era, there were some races that did not exist in the third era. But there were some races. It existed in every epoch. Such a race. Most of them were existences who had given birth to Tao fruits. Even if such existences had fallen, the means they left behind could affect the next era and even more eras. Even Qin Shujian himself was an existence of this level at his peak. He was not sure. What kind of means did other experts of the same level have? Let me give you a hand. Qin Shu Jian looked at the chaotic gas in front of him and directly forced a drop of blood out of his body and shot it into it. The blood fused into it. The chaotic gas rolled wildly and violently. As a human, if he left his blood, then the human race that was born would be exactly the same as the human race in the Great Wide World and the Third Era. There would not be any strange changes. Of course. The blood left behind by Qin Shu Jian was just ordinary blood, not at the level of essence blood. Because once he used his blood essence to fuse with it. In that case, the humans born from the chaotic gas must be extremely powerful. Perhaps they could even become true immortals with the help of the current environment. If that was the case, it was very unfair to the other living beings. Although ordinary blood was also extremely powerful, it was not enough to create a true immortal out of thin air. According to Qin Shu Jian's estimation, the strength of a human born into the world was roughly around that of a celestial being. As for what level of celestial being, that was hard to say. I don't want a single race to dominate the world. What I want is for all races to flourish. Only then will I be able to produce enough experts and become even stronger. Qin Shu Jian smiled faintly. As the master of heaven and earth, he could borrow the power of the living beings of the inner world when necessary. In other words, the more experts that were born in his inner world, the more powerful he would become. A single race dominated the world. In that case, the other races would not have the opportunity to develop. In that case, there would also be flaws in the nurturing of the laws of heaven and earth. More importantly, if a single race dominated the world, how could there be more experts born in a situation where all the races were competing? Therefore, although Qin Shu Jian was a human, he would not be too biased towards the human race in his inner world. Before the Middle Thousand World was promoted to the Major Thousand World, the human race suppressing all the other races was not a situation he wanted to see. Now that the human race and the Golden Rock race are both in the process of nurturing, Jianmu should be considered an Eldar. As the first living being to be born in the world, the other Eldar can also share a lot of luck. I reckon that it won't be long before a large number of Eldar creatures appear. However, the newly born creatures of the other races won't be too weak either. Even if they aren't as strong as Jianmu, they won't be too far off. Moreover, the Eldar are gentle by nature and rarely interfere in other disputes. I'm not worried that the Eldar will take this opportunity to suppress the other races. Qin Shu Jian glanced at the chaotic gas in front of him again, and then left the inner world. The number of living beings that were born was still too few. He needed to comprehend new rules from the experts of the other races. When that time came, only then would the inner world truly enter a period of growth. He left the inner world. Qin Shu Jian's spiritual will moved slightly and sensed the abnormality of the outer hall's door. The Moon Emperor has become an immortal. When he saw the Moon Queen standing outside, he understood what was going on. When the Moon Clan had used all their trump cards, Qin Shu Jian had guessed that they were preparing for the Moon Emperor to become an immortal. Now that the Moon Emperor had appeared in the heavenly court, he was already a perfected immortal. This just happened to confirm Qin Shu Jian's original guess. Becoming an immortal at this time is just right. It's time for someone to inherit the deity position of the Moon Lord. Qin Shu Jian sighed in his heart. As long as the deity position of the Moon Lord was filled, the heavenly court and the 4 great continents would officially enter a period of high growth. Then he took out the god roll and looked at the deity position of the Moon Lord that had condensed on it. The power of the deity position had already weakened a little. There was no doubt. Yin was recovering his strength, which led to the weakening of the deity position. In another year and a half, the deity position of the Moon Lord would completely disappear. During this period of time, Qin Shu Jian was immersed in the joy of increasing his strength. He almost forgot about the deity position of the Moon Lord. Once the deity position of the Moon Lord disappeared, if he wanted to condense the deity position of the Moon Lord, he would have to go to the heavenly abyss to snatch Yin's power. But with his current strength, it was undoubtedly a fantasy to snatch the nomological power of a half-step Dao fruit expert. An expert of that level, it was no longer something a 9th heaven immortal could compare to. Even if Qin Shujian reached the peak of the ninth heaven immortal realm, he was not 100% confident that he could contend against Dean. No one had truly reached that step. He would never be able to figure it out. How big was the gap between a ninth heaven immortal and a half-step Dao fruit expert? Although a ninth heaven immortal was not equivalent to an ant in front of a half-step Dao fruit expert, it was almost impossible to contend against him. If he was a seventh heaven immortal or even an eighth heaven immortal in front of a half-step Dao fruit expert, he would not waste much strength to kill him with a slap. Because of the existence of this level, he had already glimpsed something on another level. But because he was not strong enough, he could only vaguely see it. When the clouds parted and the moon appeared, it was time to truly advance to the Dao fruit realm. True power. Illusory power. These were two completely different levels of power. And a Dao fruit expert had completely reached the peak of illusory power and was qualified to touch true power. In front of reality, all the illusions were like ants to him. Although a Dao fruit expert could not truly grasp true power, even a trace of it was enough to surpass all living beings. The Moon Empress has arrived. There is no need to wait outside.
Come in.
A calm voice came from the inner hall, directly into the ears of Niodali and the Moon Empress. Hearing this, the Moon Empress was instantly delighted. Then, she glanced coldly at Niodali and walked in. She would remember this bull. Walking into the inner hall of the Heavenly Palace, the Moon Empress immediately bowed. Greetings, Emperor of Heaven. I once promised that if you could break through to the true immortal realm in half a year, I would give you the deity position of the Moon Lord. Now that you have become an immortal, the deity position of the Moon Lord is naturally yours. Qin Shujian sat high on the throne, looking down at the Moon Empress below. The Moon Empress was overjoyed, but she hid her emotions on the surface. Thank you, Emperor of Heaven. Seeing this, Qin Shujian did not waste any time and directly took out the investiture of the gods. Shiyu, today I confer you the title of Moon Lord. With that, the imperial insignia fell. The investiture of the gods shook, and the Moon Empress' name appeared on it. Then, a powerful force descended from the darkness, directly affecting the Moon Empress. She had just broken through to the true immortal realm, and in the blink of an eye, it stabilized. Then she climbed on top of her original foundation. In a few breaths, the Moon Empress' strength had reached the late stage of the first heaven immortal realm. She was conferred the deity position of the Moon Lord. The Moon Empress was pleasantly surprised by the benefits. The power given by the deity position directly saved her many years of hard work. At this moment, the Moon Empress was already enveloped by the moon essence of the moon. She was full of holy brilliance, which made her already beautiful appearance even more stunning. You have already been conferred the title of Moon Lord. From now on, cooperate with the Zhou-Tian constellation to guide the moon essence of the moon and illuminate the 4 continents.
Yes.
The Moon Empress bowed and accepted the order. When she straightened up and wanted to say something, Qin Shujian had already sent her out with a simple wave of his hand. The whole process was smooth. The Moon Empress had no time to react at all. When she came back to her senses, she had already appeared in the outer hall of the Heavenly Palace. At this moment, the Moon Empress was in awe of Qin Shujian's strength. She was pushed out of the inner hall before she could even react. If he wanted to kill her, it would not take much effort at all. Such a difference in strength, there was only awe in her heart. The halls of the Heavenly Palace, find a hall that belongs to you, the Moon Lord. An indifferent voice sounded in her ears again. Hearing that, the Moon Empress bowed slightly again toward the inner hall. Then, without looking at the green bull at the door, she directly left the range of the Heavenly Palace. Finding a hall that belonged to her, the Moon Lord, was not a difficult task. She easily connected to the seal in her sea of consciousness. In the next moment, she found a hall that belonged to her alone. When the Moon Empress was conferred the deity position, the heavenly abyss once again erupted. Roar! An earth-shattering roar erupted from the depths of the heavenly abyss, as if it was going to shatter the entire heavenly abyss. In the deepest part of the heavenly abyss, a ferocious beast roared crazily and climbed toward the top of the heavenly abyss. The chain of the universe shook crazily, making the sound of metal clashing. Under the blockade of the chain of the universe, no matter how hard the beast struggled, if it wanted to leave the heavenly abyss, it could not break out. In fact, its body could not even leave the bottom of the heavenly abyss. Anger. Monstrous anger. Right now, Yin only wanted to rush out of the heavenly abyss at all costs and then tear Qin Shujian into pieces. He was tyrannical by nature. Previously, he was already very angry when Qin Shujian cheated him of a trace of the moon rule. But now, the trace of the moon rule that was cheated away completely disappeared and became his eternal flaw. That feeling made Yin have an impulse to destroy the world. Let me go. What right do you have to imprison me? Since you don't want me to appear, why did you give birth to me? Tell me. Yin roared crazily. He hated Qin Shujian, and he hated the great thousand heavens even more. He gave birth to him but imprisoned him in the depths of the heavenly abyss forever. Billions of years were like a day, and he had no chance to see the sun at all. That kind of pain. Without personal experience, there was no way to understand. Over time, Yin naturally developed a tyrannical and resentful personality. Yang of the Dead Sea domain, because of the long years, gradually put down the tyrannical resentment in his heart and became indifferent to everything. But Yin was different. The long years did not let him put down the anger in his heart. Instead, it became more and more intense. It was just that the universal chain could not be broken unless one was a Tao fruit expert. No matter how angry Yin was, the world did not give him an answer. Only those terrifying roars reverberated in the heavenly abyss, shaking the western prefecture slightly. It was different from the past when he would only roar twice and then stop. This time, the riot in the heavenly abyss. It lasted for half a month. Yin was roaring, and cursing. But his words could not be transmitted out of the heavenly abyss. Only those roars could break through the shackles of the heavenly abyss. During this half a month, the living beings of the Western Prefecture were in a state of panic. There was no other way. The might that erupted from Yin was simply a little too strong. That terrifying roar seemed to be able to directly attack one's soul. No matter how high one's cultivation level was, there was no way to avoid it. What made them rejoice was the existence in the depths of the heavenly abyss was only roaring, but there were no signs of coming out of the heavenly abyss. Over time, although the living beings of the Western Prefecture were shocked, their fear of the roars of the heavenly abyss dissipated a little. Until the roars completely disappeared. They could not help but feel a sense of absurdity in their hearts. The heavenly court. The gods did not care about the roars of the heavenly abyss. It was no longer a secret that the existence sealed in the depths of the heavenly abyss could not walk out of the heavenly abyss. So their fear of the heavenly abyss had lessened a lot. Compared to the matter of the heavenly abyss, the gods were more concerned about what was happening in the heavenly court. The most important thing was the appearance of the Moon Lord. As early as the birth of the Sun Lord, the gods had already understood that the deity position of the heavenly court was not fixed. It could still continue to grow. But the deity position of the Sun Lord had fallen on the Vermilion Bird Emperor. On a certain level, the Vermilion Bird tribe was considered a subsidiary of the human race. It was natural for them to obtain the deity position of the Sun Lord. But the deity position of the Moon Lord surprised these people, especially Xiao Qingfeng. Now he felt as if he had eaten shit. The Moon Lord had become an immortal. Xiao Qingfeng did not care about this at all. But now the other party had become the Moon Lord. In terms of status, it was not inferior to the 4 war gods. Such an unforeseen event. It had completely exceeded his expectations. But no matter how dissatisfied Xiao Qingfeng was, he also knew that this was not something he could interfere with. At this moment, a loud voice sounded in the heavenly court. The sun and the moon are in place. Zhou Tian's star formation rise. As soon as the words fell, a powerful aura erupted from the 2 palaces. The power of the sun and moon instantly stirred and was about to converge toward the heavenly court. In the sea of death, the sun placed in the hands of the stone statue was emitting a scorching aura. The hidden power of the sun seemed to be attracted by something and was about to break free from its control. Someone is extracting the power of the sun.
Who is it?
Yang woke up from his deep sleep and instantly noticed the abnormal movement of the sun. But he did not have to wonder for long before he understood. In the world, other than himself, the only person who could extract the power of the sun was Qin Shujian, who had swindled a trace of the sun precepts from him. He swindled the sun precepts from me in order to extract the power of the sun? Yang Yuan did not know why Qin Shujian had stolen his sun precepts.
But now,
he was completely clear. By occupying a trace of the sun precepts and then directly extracting the power of the sun for his own use. Such a method was indeed feasible. But you overestimate yourself and underestimate me. You want to extract the power of the sun with just a trace of the weak sun precepts? You are simply delusional. Yang sneered. Then, he saw a strong wave of energy coming from the stone statue and then forcibly sealed the power of the sun. He could not control the rise and fall of the sun, but he could control the power of the sun inside and not let it easily leak out. In the heavenly abyss, the Ein Palace did the same. When they noticed that someone was stealing the power of the sun, they immediately used a method to seal it. Some powerhouses tried to stop them. Naturally, the heavenly court could not draw the power of the sun and the moon to descend. In the sacred sun palace, the red-robed vermilion bird empress sat cross-legged. A seal floated in front of her. Vast natural divine fire power erupted from it, raising the temperature of the entire palace to a terrifying degree. Some powerhouse is stopping the power of the sun from descending. The vermilion bird empress could clearly sense that she had encountered a powerful obstruction when extracting the power of the sun. The person obstructing her was far, far more powerful than her. Not only that, the vermilion bird empress also sensed the terrifying power of the sun precepts from the other party. As the sun precepts, she could not do anything to it.
To this,
the vermilion bird empress was shocked. Since when did such a terrifying powerhouse exist in this world? Could it be that the existence in the depths of the sea of death has blocked the power of the sun? The only place she could think of was the place where the sun rose and set. The vermilion bird empress did not know what existed in the depths of the sea of death. But she could understand. When the sun rose and set there, it was not strange for a powerhouse to be able to control the power of the sun. But now that the power of the sun was blocked, she had no way to complete the task entrusted to her by the Emperor of Heaven. The moon monarch, who was in the lunar temple, also had an ugly expression. The power of the lunar temple was blocked. She tried her best, but she could not guide the power of the lunar temple to descend at all. The other gods. Now, they also had blank expressions. What was going on? Didn't they say that they would guide the power of the sun and the lunar temple to descend, and then activate the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation? But until now, there was no movement at all. Apart from the powerful auras of the lunar temple and the lunar temple, there was no other sound. That feeling. It was like thunder but not rain. It was a little shocking. On the throne, Qin Shujian also sensed the abnormality at the first moment. The sun precepts and the moon precepts have already ascended to the throne. If it was so easy to be stopped by you, then what was the point of me conferring the two deity thrones? In the end, you are still too short-sighted. What you are doing now is just looking at the sky from the bottom of a well. Qin Shujian shook his head. Then he pointed his finger at the investiture of the gods. Suddenly, a Zhou Tian star map appeared. In the Zhou Tian star map, a large number of light spots appeared, and each light spot was located at a different location.
but
When all the light spots were connected together, they produced endless mysteries. There is no way to refine the real He Tu and Luo Shu. But now we are not going to set up the real Zhou Tian Great Star Formation, so we don't need that level of treasure. With a simple map of the stars, it should be enough. Qin Shujian smiled, and then covered the investiture of the gods with his palm. In the next moment, Zhou Tian's star map was directly grabbed out. Go! With a soft shout, Zhou Tian's star map suddenly rose, broke through the restraint of the heavenly palace, and covered the entire heavenly court. Everyone couldn't help but raise their heads and look at the vast Zhou Tian star map. The heavenly cycle constellations, solar and lunar celestial lords, use the heavenly cycle constellations as a reference and find your own position. Qin Shujian's voice. It came out of the heavenly palace and accurately entered the ears of the gods.
Suddenly,
the palaces with starlight falling on them trembled slightly. Then, according to the position of Zhou Tian's star map, they found their own position. The palaces moved. Some of the palaces occupied the positions of the light spots, and at this moment, they were forced to move away.
Soon,
all the palaces fell below Zhou Tian's star map, on the corresponding nodes. Take out the deity seal and put it into Zhou Tian's star map. Qin Shujian spoke and said the next step. The Vermilion Bird Emperor and the others didn't hesitate and immediately flew the seals that belonged to their deity seals into the sky above the heavenly court. The deity seals returned to their positions. Zhou Tian's star map was instantly activated. Boom! A vast pressure came from it, giving everyone the illusion that the divine might was like a prison. Today, I will pass on the Zhou Tian constellation formation to you. Use it as a foundation to guide the power of Zhou Tian's stars to descend. As Qin Shujian spoke, he had already sent his divine consciousness into the investiture of the gods. When the divine will fell, the heavenly cycle constellations, Taiyang, Taiyin, and the other deities all had an unfamiliar memory. Zhou Tian constellation formation? The Vermilion Bird Emperor murmured softly and then silently digested the memory. After a long time, she woke up from digesting, and her beautiful face was already in a daze, then slowly turned to shock. The memory in her mind. It completely broke the Vermilion Bird Emperor's previous understanding. Only now did she truly understand how terrifying a formation could be.
No.
This is no longer a formation, but a manifestation of Tao. A vague understanding suddenly rose in the Vermilion Bird Emperor's heart. It wasn't the rules. It was Tao. But what was Tao? She actually didn't know much about it.
Soon,
the Vermilion Bird Emperor collected her thoughts and then lit up the star position in her mind according to the memory in her mind. Then, the other star positions were lit up one after another. Qin Shujian sat on the throne and watched the scene in the heavenly court with a terrifyingly calm expression. After all the star positions were lit up, only then did he slowly raise his hand and speak in an indifferent tone, heavenly cycle star formation rise. As soon as he finished speaking, the formation was activated. The entire vast thousand domains seemed to be bathed in endless starlight in an instant. An extremely terrifying pulling force. It instantly broke through the blockade of the Sea of Death and Heaven Abyss. At that moment, the power of sun and moon descended. In an instant, the Zhou Tian constellation formation became extremely bright, and the terrifying power of the stars directly bombarded down. The heavenly court, which was already filled with the power of the stars, directly increased the power of the stars by more than a few times. Not only that, the extremely rich power of the stars also broke through the blockade of the heavenly court and automatically spread toward the 4 continents. At that moment, all the cultivators in the 4 continents who were trapped in the bottleneck had some enlightenment in their hearts. Most of them directly broke through the shackles and broke through to the next level. The power of the stars bombarded once. It increased the overall strength of the myriad races by a lot. However, the Zhou Tian constellation formation didn't dissipate. Instead, it still covered the heavenly court. Endless power of the stars descended, causing the hearts of the gods to tremble. What a powerful power of the stars! Hiss! Cultivating here for a day is equivalent to cultivating for a year before the heavenly court was established. I have a feeling that I'm not far from the 2nd level immortal. No matter who it was, they couldn't remain calm at this moment. The density of the power of the stars had already reached a terrifying level. If one used the time before the heavenly court was established as a comparison, then cultivating in the heavenly court for a day now was equivalent to cultivating for a year in the past. There was a difference of more than 300 times. In other words, if one cultivated in the heavenly court for 10 years, it would be equivalent to more than 3,000 years, almost 4,000 years in the past. If one cultivated for 20 years, it would be more than 7,000 years. In more than 7,000 years, even a true immortal with poor talent would be able to take a step forward in his original realm. Moreover, cultivating in the current environment was much easier than cultivating for thousands of years in the real world. In this way, the current cultivation environment of the heavenly court could be said to be terrifying. I haven't seen the Zhou-Tian constellation formation for many years. I didn't expect to have a chance to see it again in this era. It's a world-shaking array formation that can be said to be all-powerful. The Blade Master bathed in the power of the stars. He looked at the Zhou-Tian constellation formation above his head and sighed in his heart. The Zhou-Tian constellation formation. That was a terrifying array formation from the first era. This array formation didn't disappear with the end of the first era. Instead, it was transmitted into the second era and the third era. However, after the end of the second era, the third era also ended. The Blade Master thought that the Zhou-Tian constellation formation had completely disappeared. At this moment, when he saw it again, an inexplicable emotion welled up in his heart. It was as if a corner of an ancient sealed memory had been uncovered. No matter which era it was, the Zhou-Tian constellation formation had played a powerful role. Almost every era, there were Dao fruits who died in the array formation. This was also the reason why the massive heavenly cycle star formation was famous. After all, it wasn't easy to kill Dao fruits. The Zhou-Tian constellation formation could kill Dao fruits every era. Its power was naturally terrifying, even when he was at his peak. The Blade Master wasn't confident that he could contend with the Zhou-Tian constellation formation. Of course, that was the complete Zhou-Tian constellation formation. The weakest one was a middle 3 true immortal, and was then suppressed by a connate cardinal treasure. It was a shocking array formation that was set up. The Zhou-Tian constellation formation in front of him looked powerful. However, compared to the complete version, it was thousands of miles away. The current heavenly court isn't strong enough, but with the nurturing of the power of the stars, they might be able to gather enough experts to set up the complete version in this era. Since the third era, I can't remember how many years it has been since I last saw the true Zhou-Tian constellation formation. The Blade Master sighed. Then he retracted his gaze and returned to his cultivation state. After the Zhou-Tian constellation formation was set up, he knew that the heavenly court's foundation was stable. As for other things, it wasn't up to him to interfere. The Blade Master understood that what he had to do now was to improve his strength as soon as possible. He couldn't fall too far behind Qin Shujian. His opponent was already an upper 3 true immortal. Meanwhile, he was still hovering around the first true immortal. The gap between them was a little too big. The moment the Zhou-Tian constellation formation was set up, Yang, who was in the depths of the Sea of Death, was completely shocked. What kind of power is that? How could it break through my seal? Dao fruit. Is that the power at the Dao fruit level? Yang was overwhelmed with shock. The power that had just erupted gave him the illusion that he was as weak as an ant. The seal that he had set up was like a piece of paper, easily torn apart and broken through. Since his birth, Yang had never encountered such a powerful force before. His mind, which had been silent for a long time, was gradually awakening. For countless years, finally, an emotion called fear was born in him. Fear. So this is the taste of fear. Yang recovered from his shock. Then, he carefully savored the feeling. It was also his time of fear. The ferocious beasts in the depths of the Sea of Death also couldn't help but feel fear. Therefore, the beast tide erupted again. The people of Heavenly Rune Island were silent. They watched as the ferocious beasts crazily attacked the formation. Their hearts didn't fluctuate too much. Once or twice was still acceptable. 3 or 4 times was also acceptable. But in a short period of time, the frequent beast tides had already made them completely relaxed. Especially when they knew that the ferocious beasts couldn't break through the formation, the people of Heavenly Rune Island were incomparably calm. No matter how cruel and terrifying the ferocious beasts were, there was no way to arouse the fear in their hearts. With the sun and moon in place, the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation has been completely set up. As long as the existences at the Dao fruit level don't make a move, the Heavenly Court is already an invincible existence in the Great Thousand Realms. On the throne, Qin Shujian had a smile on his face. With the sun and moon in place, he was finally able to set up the complete Zhou Tian Great Star Formation. Although the deities weren't strong, the formation couldn't threaten existences at the Dao fruit level. But it was very difficult for those below the Dao fruit level to contend against the formation. As long as they were in the Great Thousand Realms, Qin Shujian could control the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation to deal with any expert. Even if it was the laws of the sun and moon, he could now use the power of the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation to thoroughly exterminate the two. But the two weren't weak. With the current incomplete formation, Qin Shujian didn't have a 100% chance of success. Moreover, the laws of the sun and moon were existences that maintained the order of heaven and earth. If they were destroyed, heaven and earth would definitely lose its order, and the power of the sun and moon would also disappear. At that time, the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation would be incomplete. Therefore, the two half-step Dao fruits in the Sea of Death and Heavenly Abyss absolutely couldn't die. Or rather, before refining something that could replace them, they absolutely couldn't die. Otherwise, the power of the formation would be weakened, and they would lose the ability to mobilize the power of the formation at will. Qin Shujian tapped his finger on the table, and his gaze became deep. The Great Thousand Realms is now in an invincible position in disguise. Even if the barrier between heaven and earth is open now, there's no need to worry at all. The Void Demon can threaten the Great Thousand Realms. Unless the Void Demon has a backup plan, or there's a problem with the formation, there's no way the Great Thousand Realms can have a loophole. However, if the Void Demon really has a backup plan, it's unlikely that the barrier hasn't been broken yet. As for the problem with the formation, as long as the deities don't completely fall or the stars are destroyed, there won't be a problem with the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation. The deities had left their names on the investiture of the gods. Unless a Dao fruit powerhouse took action, there was no way to completely erase the deities. As for destroying the ancient stars, it would also require a great deal of power. After thinking left and right, Qin Shujian found that there seemed to be nothing for him to worry about. There's no need to worry about the Great Thousand Realms. I can open the barrier between heaven and earth at any time and then attack the Void Demon. It's just that I'm more than enough to defend now, but not enough to attack. Even if I can defend the Great Thousand Realms, I won't be able to destroy the Void Demon for the time being. Let's wait a little longer. When the Heavenly Court is strong enough, I'll destroy the Void Demon clan in one fell swoop to prevent future troubles. When Qin Shujian thought of this, he also dispelled the idea of fighting the Void Demon now. Then, he got up from his throne and was about to find the Heavenly Court's true immortals and comprehend the seeds of laws from them. However, just as Qin Shujian got up, his movements paused slightly. In the next second, he had already disappeared from where he was and then appeared at the entrance of the outer hall. A mysterious aura was emitted from the sleeping green ox's body. He's about to break through to the true immortal realm. After seeing Niu Dali's state, Qin Shujian understood in his heart. It was also at this moment Niu Dali opened his eyes, as if he had sensed something. Then, he got up and walked away, directly entering the mother stream of laws. P.S. In 4 more days, I'll finish my overdue chapters. Please give me monthly votes. Chapter 735. That bull is going to become an immortal. In the Heavenly Court, all the gods looked up and saw the green bull walking out of the mother river of laws. Their faces darkened. That damn bull was going to become an immortal. The heavenly court had only been established for a few years, but all the gods had been offended by the green bull. If it wasn't for the fact that it was the emperor of Heaven's Mount, it would have been killed by others. Who would have thought? That hateful green bull was going to prove his Tao. Niodali is not simple. Xiao Qingfeng looked at the green bull walking out of the long river of laws. The long river of laws that he was walking on. Compared to others, it was actually very small. But just because the long river of laws was not wide, it did not mean that the laws were weak and easy to walk on. On the contrary, the narrower the long river of laws, the harder it was to walk on. Because no expert had ever mastered it, it was not opened up by the previous generations of experts, resulting in its narrowness. Niodali could become an immortal with such a law. It could be said, his talent and potential were already very terrifying. Although the law was narrow, if Niodali could become an immortal with this law, he would definitely be more powerful in the future. Although Xiao Qingfeng was clear about Niodali's foundation, he did not expect that the other party would dare to open up a new path and walk on a path that others had never walked before. Even for himself, the law that he walked on was actually the law of his previous life. It was just that the cultivation system was different. At this moment, Niodali walked on the long river of laws and easily opened up a battlefield. The moment the battlefield opened up, he was already walking towards the end of the long river of laws. There was a monument standing there. As he approached the monument, Niodali felt that something was awakening in his body. And this feeling, the closer he got to the monument, the stronger it was. Gradually, a desolate and ancient aura had already spread out from his body, shaking the entire long river of laws. It was a terrifying shadow. Unknowingly, it was condensing above Niodali's head. It was just that this shadow was very blurry. At first glance, it looked like a cloud of black fog. The swordmaster looked at the black shadow in the long river of laws with a strange expression.
He did not know why.
He saw Niodali in the long river of laws and suddenly felt a sense of familiarity. That feeling. This made the Blade Master feel very uncomfortable. Could it be that he reincarnated? That's impossible. How could he reincarnate? Didn't he die long ago? The end of an era. Some existences could be resurrected, but others could not be resurrected. Even though it was very difficult for a Dao fruit expert to truly die, it did not mean that there was no way to make a Dao fruit expert completely die without any chance of resurrection. At this moment, Niodali had already arrived in front of the Rule Monument. When he got close to the Rule Monument, a memory that had been buried in dust suddenly surfaced in his mind. Immediately after, under everyone's gazes, Niodali directly shattered the law steel. The sturdy nomological monument was like a piece of paper in front of the ox's hooves. It was easily shattered by the power. The rule steel shattered. The long river of laws seemed to have suffered a heavy blow and shattered with a loud bang. Shortly after, his body suddenly grew in size as he opened his mouth and swallowed a fragment of the broken rules. The moment the devouring rule was activated, the black fog, which could not be seen clearly in the shape of a heart, suddenly collapsed. There seemed to be some shackles in his body that had been directly unlocked. A terrifying power rose from within. At the same time, ancient memories in the depths of his mind were awakened. At that moment, Niodali looked up to the sky and roared. Roar. The terrifying roar seemed to be able to shatter heaven and earth, the sun and the moon. The expressions of all the experts who heard the roar changed drastically. It was a roar. Even the true immortals felt their divine souls tremble, as if they would collapse at any time. Even someone as strong as Zhao Emperor and Xiao Qingfeng had a serious expression on their faces. It was laughable. They felt a great threat in front of a green ox that had not completely become an immortal. As for the other side, the Blade Master's face had completely darkened. It's really him. So many people have died. Why is he the only one who survived? The Blade Master was madly complaining in his heart. It was really that damned ox. He thought that the ox had completely fallen and had no chance of resurrection. In the end, The ox did not die and had successfully awakened the innate intelligence of his previous life. The Blade Master gritted his teeth. If I had known, I would have killed him as soon as I saw him. Now, there is no chance for him to awaken his innate intelligence. Damn it! After the anger, a meaningful smile suddenly appeared on his face. Right, if he awakens his innate intelligence and finds out that he is only the Qin Emperor's mount, I wonder what kind of expression he will have. Speaking of which, the Qin Emperor can't possibly know his identity, right? With his own strength, the Blade Master admitted that he could not see through Niu Dali's identity. However, that did not mean that Qin Shujian could not see through him. After all, when it came to strength, Qin Shujian at his peak was indeed slightly stronger than him. Otherwise, he would not have called him the Qin Emperor. Moreover, Qin Shujian's recovered strength was also much stronger than his. In the Blade Master's opinion, it was very likely that he had seen through Niu Dali's identity. Or else, with Qin Shujian's status, it was impossible for him to find a green ox as his mount. In the past, the Qin Emperor was extremely prideful. That green ox looked ordinary and did not have anything outstanding about it. It was impossible for him to have taken a fancy to it. After thinking about it, only Qin Shujian had seen through Niu Dali's identity long ago, and that was why he had taken him as his mount. Thinking of this, the Blade Master immediately smiled. The Qin Emperor is indeed more thoughtful than me. At this moment, the anger in his heart had disappeared by a lot, and it was replaced by a smile. It was good to be a mount. He could not kill that ox, but he had to disgust it. On the other side, the immortal ascension tribulation had already descended. The terrifying lightning tribulation bombardment was more like a bath for the green ox. It had no effect at all.
Not only that,
Niu Dali stepped into the air and charged directly into the tribulation clouds. In the end, the tribulation clouds suddenly shattered. A green ox stood proudly in the void, but there was anger in its eyes. Then it charged toward the heavenly court. Qin Hao, I will kill you. Boom! The void shattered. The green ox broke through layers of space and charged toward Qin Shujian. What a sudden change. It was beyond the god's expectations. Qin Hao?
Who was Qin Hao?
And at this moment, he was charging toward the heavenly court. It seemed that he was going to attack the Emperor of Heaven. Many people did not react. They just watched Niu Dali charge toward the heavenly court, and they were stunned. Only Emperor Zhao, Xiao Qingfeng, and a few others seemed to have thought of something. They thought to themselves, as expected, they had long suspected, Qin Shujian might be the reincarnation of an expert. In the past, Emperor Zhao and the others suspected that Qin Shujian was an ancient expert or the reincarnation of an ancient expert. But later, after learning about the existence of the epochs, they were almost certain that he was the reincarnation of an expert from another epoch. Otherwise, it was hard to explain how the other party could go from a bandit to the current position of the Celestial Emperor in a short 10 years. To be able to do that, it was not something that could be done with so-called talent. No matter how talented he was, it was impossible. Qin Hao is the name of the reincarnation of the Emperor of Heaven. Qin Hao? Emperor Zhao thought to himself. He was very unfamiliar with this name. He was 100% sure that it was an expert from another epoch. The name of an existence above the rules could not be heard or heard. But now, he could clearly hear the two words Qin Hao. Emperor Zhao guessed that there should be no such restriction above the rules of the fall. Otherwise, it would be hard to explain why he could hear the two words Qin Hao. As for whether Qin Shujian was the reincarnation of an existence above the rules, that was even more impossible. If he was not above the rules, how could he still be reborn in the next epoch after the end of one epoch? In front of the heavenly palace, Qin Shujian looked at the green ox who broke through the void and came over with a faint smile on his face. That angry roar. It did not make him angry. But when Niu Dali came over with a murderous aura, Qin Shujian suddenly reached out and slapped him to the ground. Boom! The heavenly palace shook slightly. The green ox fell to the ground and wanted to get up for a while, but it was as if there was nothing holding him down. There was no way at all. Nyower, are you trying to rebel? Qin Shujian smiled and looked at Niu Dali in front of him. He did not make another move. Hearing this, Niu Dali was burning with anger. His powerful aura surged crazily, trying to break through the seal of that power. Qin Hao, let me out if you have the guts. I'll fight you one-on-one. Qin Hao, you bastard. How dare you make me your mount? Let me go. Fight me one-on-one, if you have the guts. Niu Dali was about to go crazy with anger. After he awakened his innate wisdom, he found that he had been Qin Shujian's mount for a few years. He could not suppress his anger at all.
The green ox now.
He just wanted to have a good fight with Qin Shujian to vent the anger in his heart. Qin Shujian smiled. One-on-one? Okay, I'll give you another chance. As soon as he finished speaking, he removed the power seal on the green ox's back. The next moment, Niu Dali got up and stomped on Qin Shujian's head. That power was enough to destroy heaven and earth. However, before the ox's hooves landed, Qin Shujian slapped out again.
Bang!
The green ox fell from the void and could not get up again on the floor of the Sky Palace. Qin Shujian shook his head. It seems that you're not strong enough. I've already given in to you, but you're still so weak. How about it? Do you want to continue the one-on-one? Come on.
Bang! Again. Bang!
Every time Qin Shujian removed the power of the seal, Niu Dali would attack. However, that kind of attack was useless in Qin Shujian's eyes. Every time he did not wait for the other party to touch him, he would slap him to the ground. After dozens of times, Niu Dali finally stopped. He was tired. Not only was his body tired, but his mind was also tired. After countless defeats, the anger that soared to the sky had finally dissipated. Niu Dali was panting, but the anger in his eyes had not subsided. Did you know my identity long ago? That's right. Qin Shujian admitted frankly, nodded and said, when I awakened my innate wisdom, I saw through your identity. But you know that the things in your previous life are like passing clouds. You should focus on the present. Don't you think so? Hearing that, Niu Dali was furious again. However, he also knew that there was a gap in strength between him and Qin Shujian. Even if he became an immortal and successfully awakened his innate wisdom, there was no way he could compete with him. Thinking of this, a sense of helplessness rose in Niu Dali's heart. Emperor Qin, you win. This revenge. There was no way to take revenge. One step behind. It was impossible to catch up and crush the other party. Now Niu Dali hated himself very much. Why did he have to be so lazy? He did not cultivate every day and only knew how to use up the foundation left from his previous life and sleep every day. Originally, their strength was about the same. However, now Qin Shujian was already an upper 3 genuine immortal, while he had just broken through to the genuine immortal realm. If he had worked harder in the beginning, not to mention the upper 3 genuine immortals, he would not have fallen so far behind. Niu Dali was furious again, but this time, he was not angry at others, but at himself. He failed to live up to expectations. That led to the current fiasco. Hey, let me see who it is. Why are you lying on the ground and not getting up? A mocking voice came from a distance. The Blade Master stepped into the heavenly palace with a sneer on his face. Chu Kuangtu. Niu Dali gritted his teeth. If it weren't for the fact that Qin Shujian's power was still sealed in his body, he would have gotten up and fought the Blade Master to the death. The Blade Master. Chu Kuangtu sneered. What? You also want to fight with me one-on-one? Come on, don't lie on the ground. Even if I only use one hand, I can still hang you up and beat you. It was rare to see Niu Dali in such a sorry state. There was only joy in his heart. Emperor Qin, let me go, Niu Dali said in a low voice. Seeing this, Qin Shujian casually withdrew the power acting on him. All of a sudden, Niu Dali stood up from the ground, then transformed into a human and appeared in front of the two. Chu Kuangtu, do you remember the smell of the cesspool? You're courting death. Chu Kuangtu exploded in an instant. Niodali's words reminded him of some bad memories. The smile on his face had completely disappeared. His broadsword intent soared into the sky. It stimulated Zhou Tian's great star formation to emit a faint light. Today, I'm going to kill a cow and eat its meat. Come on. Do you think I'm afraid of you? Niodali sneered, facing the furious Chu Kuang-tu without the slightest fear. He knew very well. The person in front of him was not much better than him. At most, he had become an immortal a few months earlier. If they really fought, Niodali was absolutely confident that he could suppress the other party. The two were about to break out into a big fight. Qin Shujian coughed softly and said, "Ahem, if you want to fight, go to the Death Sea domain. Don't fight here, lest you cause any damage." But I have to tell you that in the deepest part of the Death Sea domain, there are half-step Dao fruits in the form of rules. Don't get too close. Just play on the periphery of the sea domain. After that, Qin Shujian took the initiative to step back. Niodali and Chu Kuang-tu did not speak. They directly flew into the air and fled out of the heavenly court. First, Niodali attacked the Emperor of Heaven. Then, two undisguised tyrannical auras directly broke through the blockade of the formation and escaped into the astral wind layer of heaven and earth. At this moment, no one was able to remain calm and watch calmly. The immortals gathered in front of the heavenly palace and happened to see Qin Shujian standing there. Emperor of Heaven, what happened just now? A genuine immortal could not help but ask. The others also fixed their eyes on the Emperor of Heaven. Qin Shujian said, "It's just a small matter. You don't have to pay too much attention to it. You can all disperse." He simply waved his hand and directly extinguished the immortal's curiosity. Seeing this, although the others were curious, they could not continue to ask. They could only salute him and turn around to leave. On the other side, Niodali and Chu Kuang-tu had gone directly to the Death Sea domain along the astral wind layer of heaven and earth. The astral wind that was strong enough to threaten a genuine immortal was nothing in front of the two of them. They did not even have any defense. Instead, they used their tyrannical physical strength to forcibly smash the astral wind. Soon, the two tore through the astral wind layer and descended on the Death Sea domain. This was the periphery, but it was not close to the East Patter Mansion. Niodali stood in the void and sneered, "Chu Kuang-tu, don't say that I'm bullying you. You awaken earlier than me, so you have a few more months to consolidate. Otherwise, don't blame me for throwing you into the cesspool. If you lose, I'll let you eat the cesspool clean." Chu Kuang-tu's eyes were cold. However, he was no longer easily angered. The anger that was attacking his heart had already been suppressed by him. As a reincarnated expert, his temperament was naturally not bad. The anger just now was just that he could not hold back for a while. In the second era, you were already a Dao fruit, and I was just a genuine immortal. Winning against me is nothing. After I broke through to the Dao fruit level, your strength was just SOSO. If it weren't for the protection of Honorable Taiching, I would have killed you long ago. While speaking, Chu Kuang-tu stood with his hands behind his back. His whole body was like a divine weapon that had been washed clean, showing off its sharpness. Terrifying and vast saber chi spread from his body, tearing the void millions of miles away and shattering it. However, when those tyrannical saber chi approached Niodali, it was suppressed by an invisible force. In the annihilated space millions of miles away, only the place where Niodali was not affected at all. Everyone knows how to boast. Today, I'll let you recall some of the things of the second epoch. After saying that, Niodali took a step forward and blasted out his fist. It was a simple punch, but it had reached the point where the great Tao was the simplest. The power of the rules immediately erupted, destroying everything within the range of the power, including the spiritual qi. "I'm not afraid of you." Chu Kuang-tu was not afraid. He unsheathed the long saber on his back. A wisp of saber light appeared, like the first ray of light when the world was created, containing infinite horror.
Boom, boom.
The battle between the two broke out in an instant. Whether it was Niodali or Chu Kuang-tu, Their moves were extremely simple. But the seemingly simple moves had actually reached the level of Tao transformation. The power of each blow shattered the void. The chaotic power of the rules in the Dead Sea domain could not capture the slightest trace. Well done. In the heavenly court, Qin Shujian cast his gaze into the sea of death and saw the exchange of blows between the two clearly. He nodded from time to time and then gave a pertinent comment, although both of them were only first-level immortals. But in terms of strength, ordinary third-level genuine immortals could not compare. That kind of strength, it had already exceeded the limits of the original realm. The rules in the Dead Sea domain are extremely chaotic. If we can copy the power of the two of them, then the Dead Sea domain will really be the Dead Sea domain. However, even though both of them were true immortals right now, their true techniques had already reached the Tao transformation state. Even the rules of the Dead Sea domain can't copy the power of the two of them. Qin Shujian looked for a while and shook his head. The so-called Tao transformation was actually a name for the manifestation of a kind of power. The existence of the Tao fruit level had transcended the rules and reached the level of Tao. Every word, action, and action had already exceeded the limits of the rules. That kind of realm. It was called Tao transformation. Although the moves of the two of them were simple, when they really faced each other, the difference between them would be obvious. Niodali may have just become an immortal, but in terms of foundation, he is stronger than the Blade Master. After all, he is the Taiching Holy Man's mount. It's hard to say who will win this battle. At that moment, Qin Shujian was unable to determine the strength of the two of them. When he thought about Niodali's identity, he thought about the Taiching Holy Man, and his expression became serious. The Taiching Holy Man. He was the supreme existence of the First Era. He was born in the First Era, wandered in the Second Era, and surpassed the Third Era. That kind of strength. He was definitely one of the top existences in the Tao fruit level. Even Qin Shujian himself couldn't estimate the strength of the Taiching Holy Man when he was at his peak. In his impression, those who could compare to the Taiching Holy Man were probably Pangu and a few other ancient gods born in the First Era. The feud between the two of them is bound to end in a battle. It's not a good thing to hold it in if we don't fight now. It's better to fight to our heart's content. Qin Shujian was also very clear about the feud between the two of them. Or rather, there weren't many powerful individuals who didn't have a feud with Niodali. That was because Niodali was too despicable. Furthermore, he had the Taiching Holy Man behind him, which made him even more arrogant and lawless. Even Qin Shujian himself suffered in the hands of Niodali before he attained the Tao fruit level. That was also the reason. After he knew Niodali's identity, he still treated him as a mount. There was no other reason other than to disgust him and vent his anger. Later on, Niodali awakened his innate intelligence and beat him up with his own hands. Only then did Qin Shujian feel better. At this moment, the Death Sea domain was already in a perilous situation. Millions of miles of the void had turned into a land of destruction. Any living being within its range would be torn to shreds by that violent power. All the beasts. Now, they all fled and didn't dare to come close.
Until now.
Both of them were injured as well. However, neither of them stopped. That was because their feud had been accumulating for a long time. Now that they finally had a chance to fight, they naturally wouldn't give up so easily. Boom! The battle continued. Time passed little by little. After an unknown period of time, a tyrannical force fell from the sky and forcibly separated the two. All right, it's about time. There's no need to fight to the death. Hearing this voice, the two of them reluctantly stopped. If it weren't for the intervention of the Qin Emperor, I would have chopped off your head today. Chu Kuangtu's expression was arrogant, but the few hoof prints on his face ruined his image. Hearing this, Niodali sneered. Chu Kuangtu, your brain wasn't filled with feces when it fell into the cesspool, right? Don't you know who has the upper hand? If it weren't for the intervention of the Qin Emperor, I would have let you soak in the cesspool for 8 to 10 years. The tone of his voice affected the wound on his body. It made the wound that was originally healing split open a little more. That pain. It made Niodali's face twitch slightly. Chu Kuangtu was so angry that he laughed. The long saber in his hand flickered with saber radiance. All right, let's see whether you throw me into the cesspool, or I chop off your head to use as a urinal. Come on. Who's afraid of who?
Come on.
Come on. The two of them stood in place and shouted, but no one made a move. They were just arguing in the air. It was not that they didn't want to make a move. It was because Qin Shujian had intervened. They were afraid. If they made a move rashly, they might be suppressed by the Qin Emperor before they could cut the other party. At that time, that would be a real loss of face. Therefore, the two of them were arguing, trying to make the other party lose control and make Qin Shujian teach them a lesson. Half a day later, Qin Shujian couldn't stand it anymore. In the end, he had to show up. Stop arguing. Now your strength is about the same. It's impossible to determine the winner. It would be better to see who would recover their previous strength first in the future. Let's go back to the heavenly court. There's something we can talk about. After that, Qin Shujian stepped into the void and left. Seeing this, the two of them looked at each other, snorted, and stepped into the void and left. In the inner hall of the heavenly palace, Qin Shujian waved his hand and released a stone table and 3 stone stools. He sat in the seat of honor, while Niodali and Chu Kuangtu sat in the seats below. Until now, the two of them still didn't like each other. They sat opposite each other, but their eyes drifted to the other side. Qin Shujian was speechless, but he didn't talk nonsense on this matter. He looked at Niodali and said in a deep voice, "Brother Nio, it's a happy thing that you've awakened your innate intelligence. Including you, we have 3 people who have awakened our innate intelligence. Plus the people in the other players' worlds, we should have about the same number of people who have awakened our innate intelligence." Hearing this, Niodali also nodded.
About the same.
There are only so many Dao fruits that can be born in an era. Plus the ones who have completely fallen, it's about time that they woke up in this era.
Then,
he looked at the rusted sword on Qin Shujian's back. The sword on the Qin Emperor's back looks familiar. Is it the sword of the Sword Master? Niodali also remembered the sword energy that shook the heavenly court. But at that time, he didn't know the origin of the sword energy. But after regaining his innate intelligence, he naturally understood the origin of the sword energy. That's right. Qin Shujian nodded. The sword master was reincarnated and happened to be blocked by me. It can only be said that he was unlucky. If he had been born a few years earlier, I might not have been able to kill him. It's fate. He can only blame himself for being unlucky. Niodali shook his head. I think the sword master won't have a backup plan for reincarnation after his death this time. It was already very difficult to leave behind a backup plan that could allow one to be reborn in the future epochs. It was almost impossible for him to be reborn a second time if he fell again after being reborn, unless the sword master had enough time to prepare after his reincarnation, like just leaving the house. In a situation where Qin Shujian blocked the door and killed him, it was impossible for him to set up a backup plan. Sanhua is indeed a powerful primordial cardinal treasure, but it's a divine weapon. I can only keep it. Qin Shujian sighed. He also coveted primordial cardinal treasures, but it couldn't be helped that the divine weapon was defiled. After he finished speaking, Qin Shujian's expression turned serious as his gaze landed on Niodali's body. He asked solemnly, "Brother Nio, how did you reincarnate? I remember that you followed the Taiching holy man out of the universe. Even if you have died, you should not have a chance of reincarnation since you died in the real power." He changed the topic to the main point. At this moment, Chu Kuangtu, who was sulking with Niodali, also couldn't help but look back. Qin Shujian was curious. He was also curious. Niodali's reincarnation proved that he had died. But since he had died, why could he be reincarnated? In fact, when Niodali followed the Taiching holy man out of the universe, Chu Kuangtu was certain that they couldn't succeed. In his opinion, Neodali had already died. The facts also proved that it was completely consistent with his conjecture. It was just that his reincarnation was beyond Chu Quangtu's expectations.
Speaking of this,
Neodali's expression dimmed a little. When the universe collapsed in the Third Era, the Taiching holy man had a premonition that he had to face death in order to achieve reality. So he walked out of the protection of the universe and entered the real world. I also followed the Taiching holy man. But how could it be so easy to face death in order to face death? Even someone as strong as the Taiching holy man failed in the end. Speaking of which, the Qin emperor should also know about this. Neodali's sudden words made Qin Shujian puzzled. I know. Yes, the Qin emperor, when you died, didn't you also face death in order to bring your soul out of the universe? It was only when your soul was about to be destroyed that the Taiching holy man sensed it and protected you in his last moments. And I was almost the same. When I died, the Taiching holy man also struck my soul back into the universe. That was how I was reborn a second time. Neodali said slowly. Hearing this, in the depths of Qin Shujian's mind, dusty memories finally awakened. In his memory, he thought of many things. When the Third Era was destroyed, he combined what the Taiching holy man said and finally figured out the way to face death in order to find the real power to allow the universe to advance. But in order to find the real world, he had to enter the real world. Therefore, when he died, he used the power of his soul to enter the real world. In his unsealed memories, Qin Shujian clearly remembered that, not counting this life, he had been reborn a total of 4 times and entered 5 different worlds. 4 of the worlds corresponded to the 4 worlds of the players. As for the last world, because the heavenly axiom had already been destroyed, it had no value. He didn't stay there for long and returned to the universe. These memories, as they suffered from the impact of the real power, most of them were sealed. Now, after Neodali's reminder, it was only then that the opportunity was triggered and the seal was completely removed. Before the unsealed memories, Qin Shujian only had a vague idea of these memories and couldn't recall too many things.
But now,
he had already recalled everything. If not for the Taiching holy man's help, I'm afraid I would have failed. No, I haven't really succeeded now. I've only lived another life. Qin Shujian shook his head and laughed at himself. Facing death in order to face life. How could it be easy? Even someone as strong as the Taiching holy man failed. If not for his help at the critical moment, he would have been one of the failures. I didn't expect that even the Taiching holy man would fall. Chu Quangtu sighed. Although he had expected this, he couldn't help but feel sad when he heard the news. He didn't like Neodali, but he respected the Taiching holy man. As an ancient god of the First Era, the Taiching holy man's strength was unparalleled. Even Chu Quangtu admitted that he was inferior. And he admired the Taiching holy man's courage to face death in order to face life. If it was him, Chu Quangtu couldn't make such a decision. The ones who had the courage to face death in order to face life were the Taiching holy man and the Qin emperor. The former had already fallen. If it was the latter, then perhaps it was the real hope. Chu Quangtu's gaze fell on Qin Shujian, and he felt complicated. The Taiching holy man has failed. Do we have any hope of success in this era? Neodali looked a little lost. Even someone as strong as the Taiching holy man had failed and fallen. Did they have any hope of success? Neodali wasn't sure, and he didn't have much confidence. Qin Shujian smiled and broke the heavy atmosphere. The Taiching holy man didn't really fail. Facing death in order to face life is the way out. Now that the greater world has connected with the player world, it's the first step to success. The Blade Master left a backup plan in the player world of the East Continent, which is the second step to success. The remaining people who infiltrated the player world didn't fail either. Now we just have to wait for the right opportunity, and we can succeed in one fell swoop. Qin Shujian's words seemed to boost their morale. The two of them looked much better now. Indeed, it had been a long time since things had reached this point. It was much better than the previous few eras where they didn't have any power to fight back and collapsed completely. P.S. Monthly votes. Chapter 736. How much time is left? Niu Dali suddenly asked. Qin Shujin shook his head. I'm not sure. The universe of this era has not expanded to its limit, so there should still be a chance. He knew what time Niu Dali was talking about. That's good. Niu Dali nodded and immediately glanced at Chu Kuang-tu with a faint sneer on his face. The provocation in his eyes was undisguised. Chu Kuang-tu was not angry, but he also returned a look. When the two's eyes met, there seemed to be sparks bursting out, but they quickly disappeared. Okay. Qin Shujin mediated, looked at Niu Dali, and said, Green Bull, you have awakened your innate intelligence, so you should stay in the heavenly court for the time being. After all, the Zhou Tian Great Star Formation is now set up, which is good for you. If you are willing to enter the heavenly court as an official, I can also arrange a deity position for you. Now that the general trend of heaven and earth has awakened, it is also a great benefit to have a deity position in the heavenly court. Green Bull. That was Niu Dali's original name. Forget about the deity position in the heavenly court. Old Bull, you have a lot of positions in the heavenly court. Just arrange a position for me. Niu Dali shook his head and had no intention of being a deity position in the heavenly court. He and Chu Kuang-tu were surprisingly in agreement on this matter. Regarding this, Qin Shujin was not surprised. After all, no matter what, he was a Dao fruit-level existence in his previous life and was the mount of the Taiching holy man. It was normal for him not to be willing to enter the heavenly court as an official. It was the same as what he said to Chu Kuang-tu. He just casually mentioned it. It would be best if he was willing, but if not, there was no need to force him. In addition, Qin Shujin did not mention the mount again. Niu Dali would definitely fly into a rage if he were to continue using it as a mount before it awakened its innate intelligence. No matter what, powerhouses at that level were more concerned about their faces. It was embarrassing. It was better to do less. Chu Kuang-tu was thrown into a cesspit in the second era, and there was no way to get rid of this hatred after a few eras. It could be seen. Pride was very important to them. Among the many palaces in the heavenly court, apart from those that already have an owner, you can find any one of them. Thank you, Your Majesty. Niu Dali nodded. After the three of them chatted for a while, he got up and left the heavenly palace, looking for a suitable place among the many palaces. On the other side, Chu Kuang-tu also left. Qin Shujin ignored the two of them. As long as they did not fight to the death, everything else was not a problem. He left the heavenly palace. Qin Shujin went straight to the Eastern Sun Emperor's palace to find the Dog Emperor, who was cultivating there. Eastern Sun Emperor. Seeing Qin Shujin's arrival, the Dog Emperor was momentarily stunned before quickly regaining his senses. What business does the Emperor of Heaven have with me? One would not visit a temple without a cause. Ever since the establishment of the heavenly court, the Celestial Emperor had never visited his residence. Now he suddenly realized. The Dog Emperor could not help but think a little more. Qin Shujin said, I need to borrow your rules. You just need to come with me and try your best to learn from each other in your river of rules. Spar with my laws? The Dog Emperor was stunned again. Qin Shujin's words surprised him. The laws that one grasped were a secret to any true immortal. If he let someone enter without permission, it might cause other changes. However, the Dog Emperor could not refuse. Because the person who spoke was Qin Shujin, the Emperor of Heaven of the Heavenly Court. Seeing the concern on the Dog Emperor's face, Qin Shujin said, Don't worry, Your Majesty. I just want to spar with you in the laws. It will not affect you in any way. Don't tell me you don't trust me. As soon as he finished speaking, the atmosphere became a little tense. Hearing this, the Dog Emperor hurriedly said, Emperor of Heaven, you are exaggerating. It is my honor to spar with the Emperor of Heaven. Then please. The Dog Emperor did not say anything else. He directly tore open the void and brought Qin Shujin into his long river of laws.
Since he had already said that,
Qin Shu Jian already had the intention of pressuring the Dog Emperor with his power. There was no way the Dog Emperor could refuse
to this.
He did not care too much. Pressuring the Dog Emperor with his power was not important. What was important was that it would be beneficial to him. Moreover, if it was just a simple spar in the long river of laws, it would not affect the Dog Emperor. At most, he would be a little exhausted or suffer some injuries. A few days later, the two of them left the long river of laws. The Dog Emperor's aura was slightly dispirited. Qin Shu Jian had a faint smile on his face. Just as expected, after the spar with the Dog Emperor, the nine-headed Dog Emperor's laws were born in his inner world. When the nine-headed Dog Emperor's laws were born, the same race was naturally born. Subsequently, Qin Shu Jian left the Emperor of Eastern Sun's residence to find his next target. The current him had completely entered the stage of crazily increasing his strength. He did not care too much about other things. The heavenly court was established. The 10,000 races were unified. There were no more twists and turns in the boundless world. Only the players below were still happily increasing their strength and looking for the rumored bronze token. Although there were many players, their overall strength was not good. The strongest player at the moment, he had only just broken through to the god martial realm. There was not even a single diviner. Now the star power was rich. The strength of the 10,000 races had greatly increased. The players did not have much chance to do anything. The desolate great world. The Array Faction Dojo. In the bedroom, there were 2 game pods placed there. 2 people were lying in the game pods. One was Zhuang Yan. The other was Zhong Hua. But there was no color on their faces. Even their life force had completely disappeared. In the game, the 2 of them were spirit martial realm experts. But in the real world, they were only true martial realm experts. True martial realm experts. There was no way to prevent their bodies from rotting. It was just that their bodies would rot longer than ordinary people. At this moment, there were many people in the bedroom. When everyone looked at the game pods, their expressions were extremely complicated. There was sadness. There was joy. There was also indifference. Soon, an old man walked in from outside. Although the old man did not look young, his body was surging with vitality. When he walked, he was vigorous. His eyes were not turbid at all. There was only a restrained light. However, when he walked into the bedroom and saw the 2 people lying in the game pods, the old man's body shook slightly. His expression did not change, but he seemed to have aged a lot in an instant. Dojo Master. The others all bowed. The other party was the Dojo Master of the Array Faction Dojo. No one dared to be rude. All of you leave. The Dojo Master slowly raised his hand and said. Seeing this, the others did not say anything. They all bowed and left. After they left, the Dojo Master's face instantly turned pale. How is this possible? How can there be real death in the game? What went wrong? The Dojo Master's expression kept changing. The death of Zhuang Yan and Zhong Hua was a huge blow to him. The Array Faction Dojo had declined. The 2 people who were truly talented and could revitalize the dojo were Zhuang Yan and Zhong Hua. For this, he did not hesitate to ask for a place to study in the Purple Heaven Palace. Because, in the Dojo Master's opinion, the chances of the 2 of them breaking through to the Array Master level in the future were very high, even higher than his own. For the dojo, he could nurture them at all costs. However, the sudden death of the 2 directly destroyed the last bit of hope in the Dojo Master's heart. It's gone. Everything's gone. The Dojo Master had a sad smile on his face. He staggered 2 steps back and almost fell to the ground. The dojo's hope was gone. Now, there was no disciple who could take charge of the dojo. If his life was exhausted and he died, then the Array Faction Dojo might really disappear from the desolate great world. As an expert of the spiritual martial realm, the longest lifespan was no more than 1,000 years. It had been hundreds of years since he became the Dojo Master of the Array Faction Dojo. Therefore, the Dojo Master did not have much life left. I can hold on for another 100 years at most. But after 100 years, the Array faction dojo will definitely decline. Unless I can find a suitable disciple to inherit the Array faction dojo within 100 years. But it's not that easy to find a suitable candidate. The dojo master sighed, and a sense of powerlessness surged in his heart. It was not so easy to find a genius with talent in Array Dao. Otherwise, he would not have spent hundreds of years to find Zhong Hua and Zhuang Yan. If the successor of the Array faction dojo was not an expert in Array Dao, then the Array faction dojo, it would exist in name only. Immediately, the dojo master's gaze fell on the game capsule again. Even if they were killed in the game, it would not affect the real world. Could it be that the cause of their death was not because of the game, but because of the outside world? He thought of some possibilities. There was a murderous intent in his eyes. If it was not because of the game, then someone deliberately plotted against the hope of the Array faction dojo. This old man will definitely not let this matter rest. I want to see who is the one who secretly destroyed the foundation of my Array faction dojo. Boom! The chaotic gas suddenly shattered, and an expert was born from it. A tyrannical force soared into the sky, as if the world was shaking. When the chaotic gas shattered, Qin Shu Jian directly withdrew from the mother stream, and his mind entered the inner world. He took a simple step forward. He had already arrived at the original hill. The gas had already shattered, and a burly middle-aged man with rags was already standing there. The tyrannical aura on his body surged, as if there was no way to hide it. When he saw the middle-aged man, Qin Shujian's mouth twitched slightly. The first human was born. A man? He had never expected this. There would only be one human born from the chaotic gas, and it was a man. Suddenly, Qin Shujian was a little worried. The birth of a human was a good thing, but the problem was that the other party was a man, and there was only one of them. In the previous eras, the human race was an extremely large race. It could not become a rare race when it came to him. Qin Shujian stood on the spot and fell into deep thought. When the man saw him, he immediately went forward and bowed respectfully. "Greetings, Your Honor." Although he had just been born, as the first human in the world, he naturally had the inheritance of the world's memory. He was also very clear about Qin Shujian's origin. "Since you are the first human in the world, I shall give you a name, Feng."
Feng.
The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment, then after carefully repeating it, he suddenly smiled. "Thank you, Your Honor, for giving me a name. From now on, Feng is my name." Qin Shujian nodded, and then his body suddenly disappeared from the spot. His purpose in coming here was to see what the first human looked like. Now that he had seen it, there was no need to stay. Giving a name, it could only be said that he felt something in his heart. As for other things, they were not within the scope of his consideration. In fact, the first human was a man. Whether it would cause the human race to completely disappear from the inner world or not, it had nothing to do with him. The birth of the world. Naturally, there was the existence of the other party's laws. If he interfered too much, it might not be a good thing. The human race has already been born. It should be about time for the other races to be born too. Qin Shujian turned his head to look in other directions. Over there was a faint aura rising. 7 years. Qin Shujian found all the true immortals of the 10,000 races to perfect the laws of his inner world.
Until now,
his inner world already had no less than 1,000 laws. Most of them were comprehended by Qin Shujian himself. There was only a very small portion left. They were some laws that were slowly born when the world was being born. 1,000 laws. Among them, hundreds of laws included the 10,000 races of the great wide world. In other words, now there were hundreds of races in the inner world. They could directly enter the stage of being born without a long period of time. Of course, if there were races that were born, there would also be races that were born naturally. 7 years. The innate spirit qi in the inner world steadily increased. Mountains and rivers and seas. In every place, there were strong and weak living beings being born. However, it was impossible for the living beings born naturally in the world to be born completely in a short period of time. Under normal circumstances, the first batch of living beings born by the world would take hundreds, thousands, or even tens of thousands of years as a unit of calculation. Even if the spirit chi in the inner world was denser and could speed up the process of birth, it was not something that could be completed in a few years. According to Qin Shujian's guess, if the living beings born naturally in the inner world wanted to be born, they would have to wait at least another 10 years. The batch that was born now, it was born in advance by comprehending the laws. In terms of foundation, it was not inferior to the ones born naturally in the world, but it was not necessarily stronger. At least, when Qin Shujian saw the wind just now, the strength of the other party was around the 5th level of the celestial being when it was born. It was at the 5th level of the celestial being when it was born. It would not be difficult for it to break through to the true immortal realm in the future. However, Qin Shujian was not sure how far it could go in the true immortal realm. However, as the first batch of living beings born in the world and the first human race in the world, its talent was also unique and its achievements would definitely not be low. In Qin Shujian's memory, when the world was born, the first batch of living beings born could basically become immortals. As long as they did not die midway, they would eventually reach the middle 3 levels of the true immortal realm and the upper 3 levels of the true immortal realm. However, if they wanted to break through to the Tao fruit realm, it would depend on luck. In every era, from the birth of the universe to its destruction, there were only a few Tao fruit experts who could be born. There were more in the first era. As the beginning of the universe, the first era was the strongest era, so the number of Tao fruit experts born was also the highest and the strongest. That batch of existences. More of them were called ancient gods. On the other side, after Qin Shujian left, Wind opened his mouth to say something, but it was too late. He looked up at the scene around him, then lifted his leg and walked in another direction. As the first human race, as early as when he was born, Wind had already obtained many memories of the world. Therefore, although he had just been born, he was still quite familiar with everything in front of him. When he recalled Qin Shujian's appearance just now, Wind immediately used his true yuan to condense a long robe and put it on himself. And when the wind was born, the wind was born. In the mountain range, there was Jianmuskirich. The Jianmuskirich, which was originally only 10,000 feet tall, had now grown to nearly 20,000 feet. If there was anyone who benefited the most from the perfection of the laws of the inner world, it would undoubtedly be Jianmu. As the first Eldar born, he could absorb spiritual energy when it was the most abundant to improve himself. 7 years. Jianmu had climbed from the original 8th level of the sky human realm to the half-immortal realm. He was only one step away from breaking through to the true immortal realm. Has the human race been born? A human face appeared on the trunk of the tree, looking in the direction of the hill. What was the human race? In fact, Jianmu didn't know either. But he knew that just now, the human race had been born in the world. The human race has been born. The other creatures should also be born one after another. Jianmu sighed ambiguously. Soon after, his gaze landed on himself. The mountain range he was in was rich with spiritual energy. Many flowers and trees had already given birth to spirituality, but they hadn't given birth to intelligence and become real creatures. The birth of the second Eldar shouldn't take long. Jianmu's branches and leaves trembled. Faint green liquid sprinkled down like a drizzle on the flowers and trees. The drizzle wasn't real rain. It was a product of the combination of his own energy and the spiritual energy of the world. All the flowers and trees that were watered by the drizzle grew at a rate visible to the naked eye. The spirituality that originally existed also grew a little stronger. Hurry up and be born. Jianmu's face was somewhat expectant. In the past, when the spirituality was born, he didn't feel much. But ever since the spirituality was born and he became a real creature, Jianmu realized that the world was so lonely. He existed in the mountain range. At a height of 20,000 feet, he was already indomitable. However, He was the only living creature in the world. Other than him, there were no other living creatures and no one to communicate with. An emotion known as loneliness was born in the Jianmu tree. He also understood loneliness. He wanted other living creatures to be born to accompany him to relieve his boredom.
So,
Jianmu would help the Eldar around him to give birth to intelligence as soon as possible and transform into real creatures. When Jianmu didn't notice anything. In fact, Qin Shujian had already quietly appeared by his side. It was supposed to be a face-to-face matter. However, Jianmu's vision seemed to be blocked by something and he couldn't discover Qin Shujian's existence at all. In 7 years, from the 8th level of the celestial being to the half-immortal realm, the speed of improvement is extremely fast. I think it won't be long before the inner world officially gives birth to a true immortal realm expert. Qin Shujian smiled slightly. As long as the inner world gave birth to a true immortal, its strength would be considered decent. Immediately after, he withdrew from the inner world. When he came back to his senses, it was already the scene in the inner hall of the Heavenly Palace. After absorbing the rules of the myriad races, the medium-class world has advanced to the late stage. If it goes up further, it will advance to the upper-class world. As long as it succeeds, I will be able to recover the strength of the third era. Qin Shujian's eyes flickered slightly. Recovering the strength of the third era was also breaking through to the Dao fruit realm. The current rate of improvement was many times faster than what he had originally expected. Qin Shujian originally thought that it would take at least a few decades for him to break through to the 9th level of the immortal realm. This was because the rules were difficult to comprehend. If he relied on himself to fumble in the mother stream of rules, not to mention 7 years, it would be impossible for him to comprehend so many rules even in 20 years. Only by taking a shortcut would one's strength increase so quickly. It's not that easy to advance to the upper-class world. The rules of any upper-class world are extremely perfect, and there are no flaws. Although there are about 1,000 rules in the inner world at present, with the current number of rules, the inner world is far from being perfect. In other words, the difficulty of breaking through to the upper-class world is still many times higher than when the inner world was just born and raised to the current level. The joy in Qin Shujian's heart faded a little. In the case of taking a shortcut, he could raise his strength to the 9th level of the immortal realm. However, if he wanted to go further and reach the Dao fruit realm, it would not be so easy. Even in the third era, Qin Shujian also spent tens of thousands of years and finally borrowed the luck of the heavenly court to successfully reach the top in one fell swoop. Compared to the third era, in this era, innately the conditions were much better. However, even so, it was not easy to break through to the Dao fruit realm. It was only a small transformation from the minor world to the middle world. However, it was a completely different transformation from the middle world to the upper-class world. The rules of any upper-class world were as vast as the stars. It would take countless years of derivation for the rules to gradually perfect to that extent. This was because the level of life was already the same as the world. On a certain level, Qin Shujian did not have to worry about his lifespan. As long as the universe did not end, he would not die easily. Therefore, Qin Shujian also had enough time to wait for the middle world to naturally advance to the upper-class world. I have enough time, but I'm afraid the universe doesn't have much time. His expression was calm. How long had the universe existed? Qin Shujian guessed that it had been at least hundreds of millions of years. After a long time, the universe had already expanded to a powerful extent. In the future, there was not much space left in the universe. Combining the time of the existence of the third era and the time of the birth of the current era, Qin Shujian could almost calculate how much time this era had left. When the universe comes to an end, the 4-player worlds will immediately take action. The heavenly Tao of each world has already seeped in. They are waiting for an opportunity to devour the universe alone. If the universe collapses, then the preparations of the 4-player worlds will be completely destroyed. Therefore, they will definitely not allow the universe to be destroyed. The most likely possibility, that was to forcefully devour Huan Yu before it was destroyed. This time should not be far away. Qin Shujian could not be completely sure how much time was left before the universe ended. Because even if he could calculate the approximate time, one had to know that the universe's time was easily measured in tens of thousands of years or millions of years. Even if there was a small deviation, perhaps there was a difference of millions of years. Within this range, it was difficult for Qin Shujian to calculate the accurate time. Unless he could break through to the Dao fruit realm, otherwise, he would not be qualified to accurately calculate the universe. Dispelling the messy thoughts in his mind, Qin Shujian held the investiture of the gods and had already sent out the message. At the same time, in the many palaces and mansions, the gods all withdrew from their cultivation state and then rushed to the heavenly palace. The inner hall of the heavenly palace was already open at this time. The gods did not stop them and entered one after another. After everyone had arrived, they all bowed in unison. "Greetings, Emperor of Heaven." After saying that, the gods straightened up and their gazes fell on the emperor's throne. The gods looked over. Qin Shujian's gaze also happened to be cast down. In his line of sight, the gods did not hide their strength at all. 7 years. The strength of the heavenly court had also increased greatly. At least in Qin Shujian's senses, there were already middle 3 true immortals born. The 5 imperial emperors, except for the demon emperor and the soul protection emperor, had all ascended to middle 3 true immortals. The remaining 2, they were also 3rd true immortals. Among the 4 war gods, Shao Qingfeng was a 4th true immortal, and the other 3 were 3rd true immortals. Looking at the 365 Zhou Tian mansions, most of them had ascended to 2nd true immortals, and some of the best had even broken through to 3rd true immortals. When his gaze fell on the Vermilion Bird Emperor and the Moon Empress, Qin Shujian paused for a moment. Whether it was the Vermilion Bird Emperor or the Moon Empress, they were the last to become true immortals in the heavenly court. However, their realms were still the last to surpass them, becoming 3rd true immortals. Regarding this, Qin Shujian also understood that most of the credit came from the deity positions of the Sun Lord and the Moon Lord. The 2 deity positions were equivalent to stealing power from half-step Dao fruit experts. It was also because of this. They were able to cross 2 small realms and directly break through to 3rd true immortals in 7 years. For middle 3 true immortals, 33 3rd true immortals, and the rest are all 2nd true immortals. You have all improved a lot in these few years, and I am deeply gratified. Qin Shujian said with a faint smile. Hearing this, the earthly emperor cupped his hands and said, "We were able to make progress thanks to the Emperor of Heaven's Zhou Tian Great Constellation Formation. If it weren't for the help of the Zhou Tian Great Constellation Formation, it would be difficult for us to make progress in a few years even if we were extremely talented." The Antarctic war god is right. If it weren't for the Emperor of Heaven's credit, how could we have such gains? The Zhou Tian Great Constellation Formation not only benefited us heavenly court gods, but also the thousands of races in the 4 major continents. Many people spoke one after another. Flattery didn't cost money anyway, so it didn't matter if they said some good things. Besides, now that the god's strength had improved, it was indeed related to the Zhou Tian Great Constellation Formation. If it weren't for the power of the stars, it would be impossible to make such progress even in 70 years, let alone 7 years. Qin Shujian nodded and then looked at Emperor Zhao. Emperor Zhongyuan, how many true immortals have been born among the thousands of races in the 4 major continents, excluding the gods of the heavenly court? It was a sudden question. Emperor Zhao's expression was also normal. He cupped his hands and said, "Emperor of Heaven, the 4 major continents are covered by the power of the stars, and the thousands of creatures have improved rapidly. In recent years, many experts have broken through to the true immortal realm. Roughly counting, there are more than 700 true immortals, excluding the gods of the heavenly court." As soon as he finished speaking, Qin Shujian wasn't surprised. Instead, the expressions of the other gods changed slightly. Everyone couldn't help but be shocked. More than 700 true immortals. They didn't expect that so many true immortals would be born in the thousands of races in just a few years. After all, there were often visions of immortal ascension, but no one seriously counted them. Even Xiao Qingfeng. After hearing Emperor Zhao's words, he couldn't help but be shocked. More than 700 true immortals, including the gods of the heavenly court, the number of true immortals in the 4 major continents had broken through 4 digits. One had to know. When the ancient heavenly court was at its peak, there were only 365 true immortals. It wasn't that the ancient heavenly court could only accommodate 365 true immortals, but there were only 365 true immortals born among the thousands of races. That was because true immortals had a limited lifespan. Moreover, ordinary creatures also needed opportunities and talent to break through to the true immortal realm. Many of those who had the chance to break through to the true immortal realm either didn't have enough lifespan, resources, or opportunities. There were various reasons. That was why there were so few true immortals. Of course, mastering the rules was also a big problem. Therefore, it was obvious that the birth of a true immortal was extremely difficult. Xiao Qingfeng didn't expect that the heavenly court would only use 10 years to make the number of true immortals in the 4 major continents exceed the peak of the ancient times. Just as he was still in shock, Qin Shujian smiled. Rumor has it that the ancient heavenly court had 365 true immortals. That was when the thousands of races were at their peak. Now, the heavenly court has only used 10 years to give birth to more than 1,000 true immortals in the 4 major continents. Their strength is at its peak, and it can't be compared to the ancient times. This era of great competition is a disaster, but it's also an opportunity for the heavenly court and all living beings. Qin Shujian's voice was so loud that it reverberated in the heavenly palace. All the gods gathered their thoughts and listened attentively, with respectful expressions. If the strength of the true immortals wasn't taken into account, just the number of true immortals was already several times higher than the ancient heavenly court. It was a matter of strength. It was only temporary. With the current rate of improvement of the heavenly court, it would at most take another 10 or 20 years to give birth to powerhouses comparable to the ancient heavenly court. The heavenly court was powerful. As a member of the heavenly court's gods, they also felt proud. Qin Shujian said, I originally thought that the heavenly court would need 10 or 20 years to have the initial strength to contend with the void demons, but now it seems that I was wrong. With the current strength of the heavenly court, it's enough to wage war against the void demons. All these years, the void demons have been besieging the heaven and earth barrier, trying to invade the great 1,000 worlds and destroy the heavenly court's thousands of races. In the past, the heavenly court was not strong enough and could only hide behind the heaven and earth barrier to survive. Now, the heavenly court has enough strength to deal with the void demons. Therefore, I've decided that in a month, the heavenly court will officially attack the void demons.
Boom.
As soon as his voice fell, the gods were shocked. 1 month later, they would attack the nefarious Devil Clan. This news was completely beyond their expectations. As soon as Qin Shujian finished speaking, someone immediately cupped his hands and said, Emperor of Heaven, although the heavenly court is not weak now, the void demons have 4 demon emperor-level powerhouses. Currently, in the heavenly court, only the Emperor of Heaven has the strength of a 3rd-level true immortal. If we rashly wage war against the void demons, it might not be too risky. According to my suggestion, it's better to wait for a few more days. In another 10 years, we won't have to fear the void demons at all. That's right, it's too risky to wage war against the void demons now. The Thousand-Eye Emperor also nodded in agreement. Although the other gods did not speak, from their expressions, they had similar thoughts. Starting the war in a month, time was too tight. Although the heavenly court was strong now, there was still a certain gap between them and the void demons. The biggest gap. It was in the number of top powerhouses. Currently, the heavenly court only had 1/3 level true immortal, the Emperor of Heaven, but the void demons had 4 demon emperors. They really did not have the confidence to fight 1 against 4. In the eyes of the gods, Qin Shujian made such an impulsive decision because the heavenly court strength had skyrocketed recently, which led to a great increase in confidence. Zhao Huang, Xiao Qingfeng, and the others did not object, but they did not agree either. They stood in place with silent expressions, thinking about something. In the face of the gods' opposition, Qin Shujian was not angry. You don't have to worry too much about the void demons. Since I dared to wage war, I have enough confidence. Although there are many demon emperors in the void demons, that's all. In a month, the heavenly barrier will open. At that time, the heavenly court and the other races will officially wage war against the void demons. Qin Shujian's words were not to be doubted, and he did not give the others a chance to object.
Seeing this,
many people opened their mouths, wanting to say something, but when they met Qin Shujian's majestic gaze, they consciously shut their mouths. The Emperor of Heaven had already made his decision. They, the heavenly court subjects, could only listen to his orders. P.S. Requesting monthly votes. Chapter 737. A month later, the heavenly court officially declared war on the Void Evil Demon clan. After the heavenly palace dispersed, the gods immediately passed on the news. Because this matter concerned the survival of the myriad clans, no one dared to take it lightly. Moreover, there was no need to hide this matter. Once the barrier of heaven and earth opened, the war would begin instantly. There was no possibility of hiding it. After the news was passed on, the atmosphere in the 4 continents suddenly became tense and solemn. The heavenly court is preparing to attack the Void Evil Demon clan. In the Qianyuan sacred ground, Qin Yuanbai sat in the main seat and looked at the many elders below as he spoke slowly. Sitting beside him was Feng Xinglan. Under the irrigation of the power of the stars, Qin Yuanbai had also reached the 10th level of the celestial being realm. One more step, and he would be able to step into the realm of true immortal. He was also a deputy sacred lord. Feng Xinglan had also reached the 9th level of the celestial being realm. If he hadn't been cultivating the array, he might have also been a powerhouse at the 10th level of the celestial being realm. According to the original plan, the first powerhouse to reach the 10th level of the celestial being realm was qualified to be the sacred lord of the Qianyuan sacred ground. Therefore, naturally, Qin Yuanbai removed the word deputy in front of the 3 words, Deputy Holy Master. As for Feng Xinglan, he was still the Deputy Sacred Lord. With the existence of the Deputy Sacred Lord, the original authority of the Sacred Lord had also weakened a lot. There was no way for him to be like Qin Shujian when he first established the Qianyuan sacred ground. But even so, the majesty of the Sacred Lord was still strong. The war will start in a month. Is the heavenly court already so powerful now? Xia Kun looked shocked. War on the Void Evil Demon clan. The Void Evil Demon clan was no longer a secret to the myriad clans. How many powerhouses were there? Generally speaking, there was a number. Although Xia Kun knew that the myriad clan's strength had improved a lot, she didn't expect that they would start a war on the Void Evil Demon clan so soon. The Golden Rock King said in a deep voice, the Void Evil Demon clan has 4 demon emperors. Those 4 demon emperors were already top powerhouses in ancient times. Now that 1,000,000 years have passed, their strength must be even more terrifying. It's too risky for the heavenly court to start a war with them. He wasn't in favor of war against the Void Evil Demon clan. How strong was the heavenly court? Even if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they could still guess. After all, the heavenly court had only been established for 10 years. 10 years. For a true immortal, it was as easy as flicking a finger. Even if the cultivation environment had changed a lot, the possibility of fighting against those demon emperors was still not high. Qin Yuanbai said, "This is an order from the Emperor of Heaven. It's not something you or I can control. Since the Emperor of Heaven dares to fight against the void demons, he must have his own confidence. All we can do is cooperate with the heavenly court. Moreover, the strength of the Qianyuan sacred ground has improved a lot. With thousands of celestials, It's time to officially see some blood. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a good thing to stay in seclusion for too long and have strength but no matching combat strength. Only the baptism of blood and fire could truly give birth to a sufficiently strong expert. For Qin Yuanbai, the Qianyuan sacred ground now had enough foundation, but after 10 years of accumulation, it was still a little weak. It needed to be tempered with blood and fire to destroy this weakness. In particular, the opening of the 10,000 clan battlefield in the past. It also made him understand just how much of an effect was war to a cultivator. Hearing this, most of the elders present were silent. Some people opened their mouths and wanted to say something, but in the end, they didn't say anything. You can already feel that the birth of the Eastern continent is getting faster and faster. In the past, a new region would appear every few days. Now, new regions are born almost every day. I believe you know very well what this means. Fang Xinglan, who had been silent, finally spoke at this time. It was just that his words were a little low and sounded like an old man, which didn't match his appearance on the surface. The birth of regions in the Eastern continent was accelerating. This meant that the arrival of the demonic abyss was also accelerating. Everyone clearly understood the meaning behind Fang Xinglan's words. After indirectly mentioning the demonic flame, the atmosphere in the Qianyuan hall became much more solemn. Qin Yuanbai said, "The arrival of the demonic abyss is inevitable. The Void Demon Clan is also a great threat. Whether it is the demonic abyss or the Void Demon Clan, their goal is the Great Thousand World. I believe that the Emperor of Heaven also understands the relationship between the two, so he took the initiative to attack the Void Demon Clan. After the Void Demon Clan is eliminated, we can fight the demonic abyss with all our strength." This battle. Not only did the Heavenly Court want to fight, but they also had to fight. The speed at which the Eastern continent was growing now was already frightening. It was expanding every day. No one knew how close the Great Thousand World was to the demonic abyss now. In the past, there was still a few decades, but now there was probably no time. When the demonic abyss arrived, then the Heavenly Court would be attacked from both sides. At that time, the possibility of defeat would be higher. King Goldenrock and King Azure Billow looked at each other and saw the solemn look in each other's eyes. Immediately, their gazes fell on King Huanshinwang, the sect master of the Fantasy Ocean sect, who came from Tianwen Island, had also entered the Qianyuan sacred ground as an official elder of the sacred ground. The ancient emperors, among whom the strongest were true immortals of the upper 3 levels, were still defeated by the demonic abyss. Now that the Heavenly Court has a strong foundation, if the demonic abyss really comes, King Huanshinwang stopped halfway through his words. Qin Yuanbai shook his head slightly. Whether the Heavenly Court can win or not is not something we should consider. When the time comes, we will either win or die. There is no other result. What we can do now is to improve our strength as much as possible before the demonic abyss arrives. The battle in a month is a good opportunity. The outer space is vast and boundless. Even if the Heavenly Court goes to war with the demonic abyss, it is impossible to determine the outcome in one battle. I'm afraid there will be a certain degree of tug-of-war. Qin Yuanbai had never really been to the outer space, but he had recognized the Qianyuan realm as its master. Through the core of the small world, Qin Yuanbai could clearly feel the vastness of the outer space. If the Heavenly Court wanted to fight with the demonic abyss, it was simply impossible to wipe out all of the nefarious devil clans in the void. A month later, at most, it would start the first battle. More likely, it would be a fierce battle with the demonic abyss. Wear down the power of the demonic abyss bit by bit, and finally determine the outcome in one fell swoop. All of a sudden, in the middle of the Qianyuan palace, spiritual energy surged, and a solid person appeared. When they saw that person appear, including Qin Yuanbai, all the elders in the palace hurriedly got up and bowed. "Greetings to the Emperor of Heaven." After saying that, they straightened up. Qin Yuanbai's face was respectful, and he asked in a deep voice, "Emperor of Heaven, what orders do you have for us?" At this moment, the others were looking at the ground. not daring to look directly at Qin Shujian's face. In the entire Qianyuan palace, there were only 3 people who had the guts and qualifications to look directly at Qin Shujian. One was Qin Yuanbai, the other was Feng Xinglan. The last one was Ningbo. At this moment, he had successfully broken through to the diviner realm. Coupled with his relationship with Qin Shujian's disciple, he had successfully become an elder of the sacred land. Qin Shujian put his hands behind his back, his face calm. In a month, the heavenly court will start a war with the demonic abyss. The Qianyuan sacred land will do its best to refine cities for use during the war. The quality of all the cities refined must not be lower than a 4-seal Dao artifact. In a month, we must do our best. If there are insufficient materials and manpower, we can communicate with the Great Zhao Empire and the other clans.
Hearing this,
Qin Yuanbai's face showed a difficult expression. In a month, it will be difficult to refine a city that is not inferior to a 4-seal Dao artifact. Although a month is a short time, I believe that you can do it. Right now, there are many forging masters in the Qianyuan sacred land. As for the Great Zhao Empire, it is the same. As for the specifics, you can decide for yourself. My request is that no less than 10 cities will be created in a month. After speaking, Qin Shujian's body dissipated as if he had never appeared. But before he left, he glanced at Ningbo, then nodded slightly. Yes. After he left, the others dared to raise their heads. Sacred Lord, to refine 10 cities that are not inferior to a 4-seal Dao artifact in a month is as difficult as ascending to the heavens. Cui Huai smiled bitterly. Although he was not proficient in forging, however, he also knew how difficult it would be to accomplish this. Qin Yuanbai smiled bitterly. So, what if it is difficult? The Emperor of Heaven has personally given an order. Do you think it is possible for us to refuse? After speaking, he looked at Ling Huayu and asked, Elder Ling, are you confident? It's hard to say. Ling Huayu shook his head with a dignified look on his face. If it was before, there would definitely be no way. But now there are almost 10 forging masters in the sacred land. If we communicate with the Great Zhao Empire, it may be feasible. According to what the Emperor of Heaven said just now, I am afraid that it is not a top-level divine weapon comparable to a 4-seal Dao artifact, but a real Dao artifact. Now there are regions being born every day, and there is no shortage of innate spirit objects. We can only do our best. She did not make any promises. After all, there was no shortage of materials now, but the real difficulty was not in the materials at all, but in the difficulty of refining. Qin Yuanbai was slightly relieved, and then nodded. With Elder Ling's words, I am relieved. I heard that Elder Su Zhan of the Great Zhao's Imperial Astronomer has broken through to the second realm. With his cooperation and Elder Ling's strength, it should be possible.
then,
Qin Yuanbai originally wanted to send someone to contact the Great Zhao Empire, but when he thought that time was tight, he did not waste any more time and set off in person. In the Heavenly Palace, Qin Shujian came back to his senses. He had just separated a wisp of divine consciousness and went to the Qianyuan sacred land to give an order. Now that his divine consciousness had returned, the matter was naturally resolved. My chief disciple's strength has improved quite well. With his talent and the red lotus of purgation, there is hope that he can reach the step of evolving heaven and earth. To be honest, Qin Shujian hardly paid attention to his disciple. Especially in recent years, he had been completely focused on improving his strength and did not have time to care about other things. Until now. When Qin Shujian went to the Qianyuan sacred land, he finally saw his disciple. It was just a simple glance. He had already seen through Ningbo. The 5th tier of the celestial being realm had opened nearly 20,000 star acupoints. With the other party's strength, Qin Shujian made a comparison with himself in the past. The other party was almost at the level of an emperor, challenging someone of a higher realm. It was not difficult. Thinking of Ningbo, Qin Shujian also thought of other people. 10 years ago, I passed down the cultivation method, but unfortunately so far, no one has broken through to the true immortal realm. However, whether it is the path of physical sanctification or the path of evolving heaven and earth, it is not so easy to walk. It is impossible to become an immortal in 10 years. If we delay for a few more years, maybe a true immortal will be born. Becoming an immortal in 10 years was also good. Becoming an immortal in 20 years was also good. Under normal circumstances, no matter which era it was a shocking thing. But in the current era of great competition, anything that was impossible would become possible. In Qin Shujian's opinion, the most promising person to be the first to become an immortal should be Ti Jianfeng. Among all the people who passed down the cultivation method, Ti Jianfeng's talent was one of the best. In particular, he took the path of physical sanctification, which was easier than evolving heaven and earth. The probability of him becoming an immortal in the future was also very high. Is the Emperor of Heaven confident in dealing with those demon emperors now? The god-slaying saber suddenly asked. In the past few years, he rarely talked to Qin Shujian. Because the other party needed to cultivate, he also needed to improve his strength. Without a true immortal to kill, that was to draw on the power of the stars to strengthen his foundation. Until now, Godslayer finally couldn't help but ask. He also had a lot of doubts about Qin Shujian's strength because he had no way to see the other party's depth. Godslayer could be sure of one thing. Qin Shujian's strength had reached the level of an upper 3 true immortal. However, no one knew the exact battle prowess of the upper 3 heavens true immortals. Actually, with the heavenly court's current strength, we can wait a few more years. If we fight in a few years, our chances of winning will be much higher. In the end, Godslayer added. Qin Shujian shook his head. The demon emperors are strong, but they're no threat to me. Zhou Tian has set up the great astral formation. The heavenly court is in an invincible position. If we don't fight now, the result will be about the same in a few more years.
There's no need to waste that time.
Besides, you should have sensed that the demonic abyss's aura is very, very close. 30 years have passed, and now a few years have passed. The demonic abyss will officially descend in 10 years at most. When that time comes, the heavenly court will be in a very awkward position. In the end, Qin Shujian's expression turned serious. It wasn't that he wanted to fight. It was that the heavenly court didn't have much time left. It was impossible to wipe out the Void Sinister Demon clan in a single battle, because the outer realm was too big. Even if the universe had shrunk a lot in this era, there was still no way to change the vastness of the outer realm. As long as the Void Sinister Demons avoided fighting, it would take a lot of time for the heavenly court to wipe them all out. Moreover, the demonic abyss would descend in 10 years at most. If the eastern continent's growth sped up, the Great Tribulation might officially begin in a few more years.
Not now.
There wouldn't be a chance to fight in the future. Qin Shujian was confident that he and the heavenly court could fight the Void Sinister Demons and the demonic abyss. But he wasn't confident that he could deal with both at the same time. Therefore, there had to be a trade-off. Should he wipe out the Void Sinister Demons first, or attack the demonic abyss first? This was a multiple-choice question. Any normal person would know what to choose. Godslayer said, "It seems that the Emperor of Heaven is much stronger than I thought." He didn't believe that Qin Shujian didn't know the strength of those demon emperors. But even so, he still had the confidence to say that the demon emperors weren't a threat. Therefore, Qin Shujian's strength was definitely not as simple as it seemed on the surface. Moreover, the reincarnation of a Dao fruit expert had a halo that made people believe in him. Godslayer had nothing to object to. He left the heavenly palace. Qin Shujian came in front of a hall. The door of the hall opened automatically, and a hearty voice came from inside. "You're here, Your Majesty. Why don't you come in and have a seat? Okay?" Qin Shujian smiled and stepped in. The hall was very spacious. Only Chu Kuangtu was sitting cross-legged in the middle. Compared to the last time, the aura emanating from him had become even more terrifying. Qin Shujian walked in front of Chu Kuangtu and simply waved his hand. He condensed a chair with his spiritual qi and sat down. How's your strength now, Blade Master? I've recovered a lot. Although I'm not as strong as your Majesty, who directly entered the upper 3 true immortal realms, I'm almost at the 6th true immortal realm. Chu Kuangtu said with a little pride on his face. In a few years, he had just broken through the 1st true immortal realm to the 6th true immortal realm. Such a speed of improvement was beyond the reach of ordinary people. Although he was the reincarnation of a Dao fruit expert, he still couldn't offset this terrifying improvement. After all, he was a Dao fruit expert in his previous life. But Chu Kuangtu knew very well. He didn't have any foundation left. In this reincarnation, he relied entirely on his talent. At most, he was much more experienced than others in terms of cultivation. If it were other experts, Chu Kuangtu was confident that they wouldn't improve as fast as him. Of course, the Qin Emperor in front of him was not among those people. In Chu Kuangtu's view, Qin Shujian was a complete freak. Although he couldn't see through the realm of the person in front of him, he still had a very strong warning in his heart when facing him. That kind of warning, Chu Kuangtu understood. Even with his current strength, he had no chance of winning against the Qin Emperor.
No.
It was not a chance of winning, but a chance of survival. Thinking of this, Chu Kuangtu couldn't help but smile bitterly. I really want to know how you did it, Your Majesty, to improve your strength so quickly in such a short time.
It's just my talent.
It's not worth mentioning. Qin Shujian smiled. Hearing this, Chu Kuangtu's face darkened slightly, and then he shook his head. It's okay if you don't want to say it. Your Majesty, you suddenly came here today. If you have something to say, just say it. I've been in your heavenly court for a long time and have absorbed a lot of star power. If you really want to fight or something, I can help. Although he didn't know the specific purpose of Qin Shujian, but Chu Kuangtu could vaguely guess something. Qin Shujian said, in a month, the heavenly court will officially start a war with the demons of the void. At that time, I'll need your help. Okay. Chu Kuangtu nodded without hesitation. Qin Shujian said, there are 4 devil emperors among the demons of the void. As far as I know, at least 2 of them are at the 9th level of immortal. The remaining 2 were at the 8th level of immortal a million years ago. I don't know if they have broken through to the 9th level of immortal. After all, they have existed for many years. Even if they are weak, they won't be too weak. The strength of the devil emperors. Although Qin Shujian hadn't fought with them personally, he knew a lot about their strength. Because the heavenly court had an eastern god of war, who is the reincarnation of an ancient 9th level immortal. If there was something he didn't know, he could ask Xiao Qingfeng directly. Hearing this, Chu Kuangtu's face became more serious. 2 9th level immortals, the weakest of them is at the 8th level of immortal. And there is a certain possibility that all 4 of them are at the 9th level of immortal. To be honest, the demons of the void are not weak. You are the only perfected immortal in the upper 3 levels of immortal in the heavenly court. Is the Emperor of Heaven really confident that he can deal with them? At this moment, Chu Kuangtu was a little doubtful whether Qin Shujian could deal with those devil emperors. After all, those who could reach that level of cultivation had a strong foundation. Even if they were reincarnations of Dao fruits, it would not be easy for them to have an absolute advantage. Qin Shujian said with a smile, if I can't do it, I still have you and the green ox, right? Chu Kuangtu's face suddenly darkened. What do you mean? So you want to fight because you think that the ox and I can deal with 9th level immortals? After thinking for a while, Chu Kuangtu expressed it in a more tactful way. Emperor Qin, you also know that the foundation of the experts at that level is extraordinary. If I break through to the 7th level of immortal, it won't be a problem to deal with them. It's just that the 6th level of immortal is too hasty. Saber Master, don't worry. I will naturally fight against the 4 devil emperors head-on. What you have to do is to find a way to secretly stab them. I believe in your strength. If you secretly attack, you should have no problem killing an 8th level immortal with 1 strike, right? Qin Shujian raised his eyebrows slightly. 1 strike to kill an 8th level immortal. Why don't you say that I can kill a 9th-level immortal with one strike? Chu Kuang-tu was even more speechless.
Do your best.
Emperor Qin, don't get your hopes up. After saying that, he suddenly came to his senses and looked at Qin Shujian with a strange expression. Emperor Qin, are you really confident that you can deal with the 4 devil emperors? I never do things that I'm not confident of. Qin Shujian smiled confidently. His words made Chu Kuang-tu's heart suddenly heavy.
He had thought that.
He had overestimated Qin Shujian's strength, but now it seemed that he had still underestimated him. Dealing with the 4 devil emperors, he was still confident enough. With such strength, he was probably about to reach the level of Dao fruit. Qin Shujian said, as long as the demons in the void don't appear at the level of half-step Dao fruit, there will be no problem. If there really are half-step Dao fruit, we can just retreat to the vast thousand world. There shouldn't be any problems with the heavenly cycle star formation. It's indeed not a big problem. Chu Kuang-tu nodded and said in agreement. With the power of Zhou Tian's great star formation, it shouldn't be a problem to contend with a half-step Dao fruit. If there is a powerful enough supreme treasure as the eye of the formation, its power will definitely increase a lot. At this moment, he looked at Qin Shujian's back. If you have a way to persuade Sanhua, it will be an excellent eye of the formation. If it doesn't work, just destroy it directly. Obliterate the spirituality inside. With the hardness of the innate supreme treasure itself, it can also play a big role. Qin Shujian didn't say anything. Sanhua on his back was faintly restless, and the rust on the sword faded a little, as if it would be unsheathed at any time. In response, the long saber on Chu Kuang-tu's back was also faintly buzzing. It was not afraid of Sanhua at all, as an expert who was as famous as the sword master. Although the saber on his back was not an innate supreme treasure, after years of cultivation, it was not much weaker than an innate supreme treasure. Therefore, in the face of Sanhua's strange movement, the long saber also gave a strong response. Still not convinced, Chu Kuang-tu raised his eyebrows and said with a sneer, "The sword master has already died. Now your magic weapon can only disgrace itself. When the sword master was still alive, he was no match for me. Why are you not convinced?" After that, Chu Kuang-tu looked at Qin Shujian. "If you need a magic weapon to destroy his divine thought, I can lend you my saber. Although it's not an innate supreme treasure, it's almost the same. It shouldn't be difficult to deal with an ownerless magic weapon." Hearing that, Sanhua buzzed again. As an innate supreme treasure, it had never been insulted like this. If it weren't for the fact that the situation was better than the sword, he would definitely kill Chu Kuang-tu. Qin Shujian smiled faintly.
"Don't worry.
I will make the decision." Then he got up from the stone bench. "In a month, the heavenly court will fight. Saber Master, take this opportunity to cultivate. I hope your saber will be sharp enough by then. Speaking of which, I haven't seen your single slash of heaven and earth for many years." As his voice fell, Qin Shujian had already floated away. Single slash of heaven and earth? Chu Kuang-tu murmured to himself. The long saber on his back was still trembling. After a long time, a smile appeared on his face. "When the time comes, you will see it." After leaving the palace, Qin Shujian did not return to the heavenly palace. Instead, he went to Nyodali's place. Compared with the lazy green ox in the past, the green ox in front of him was like a completely different ox. He worked hard and cultivated hard day and night. Therefore, when he saw Nyodali in person, Qin Shujian could not help but be surprised. Nyodali's realm. It was much higher than what he had expected. Qin Shujian originally thought that Nyodali was at most a 3rd or 4th level immortal. Now, it seemed that he was not weaker than Chu Kuang-tu at all. He talked with Nyodali for a long time. Only then did Qin Shujian get up and leave. Finally, he returned to the heavenly palace to prepare for the upcoming battle. On the throne, Qin Shujian sat upright. On the table in front of him there were 3 things. One was the investiture of the gods, one was the imperial insignia, and the other was the Sanhua sword. Qin Shujian's eyes fell on the rusted sword in front of him. He said indifferently, "You must have heard what Sabermaster said." "Over the years, I haven't done anything to you, but it means that I can tolerate your silence. You should have thought about what you should think about in the past 7 years. Natural supreme treasures are rare, but if you can't be used by me, you are no different from scrap iron. What I can't get, no one else can. If you insist on doing this, I will completely destroy you." He spoke in a very calm tone, but there was no doubt in his tone. In the past few years, Qin Shujian had no time to take care of this natural supreme treasure, so he always carried it with him and did not pay much attention to it.
But now,
he had decided to dispose of this supreme treasure. A supreme treasure that could not be used by him was no different from scrap iron. Moreover, the Sanhua sword was an invisible bomb. If it really came to a life-and-death battle, Qin Shujian was not sure that he could protect himself if the other party played tricks at the critical moment. However, it was not safe to leave a natural supreme treasure anywhere without carrying it with him. Therefore, it was time to decide the fate of this natural supreme treasure: to live or to be destroyed. Qin Shujian had given him 2 choices and let him choose. The Sanhua sword lay quietly on the table, without any movement. It's not easy for natural supreme treasures to be born. You were born in the Second Era, and it's even harder for you to survive until now. Many supreme treasures have fallen in the great calamities after several eras. You should cherish this opportunity to survive." Qin Shujian added another sentence of persuasion. The Sanhua sword still did not move. He did not speak again. Time passed little by little, and the atmosphere in the inner hall gradually froze. After a long time, the rust on the Sanhua sword faded little by little, and the dusty magic weapon glowed with its former dazzling brilliance.
then,
The long sword rose into the air, and then transformed into the appearance of a young man. "Sanhua greets the Emperor of Heaven." The young man bowed slightly.
seeing this,
A smile appeared on Qin Shujian's face. "Very good. You definitely won't regret this decision in the future. To be able to subdue the Sanhua sword."
he was really happy.
After all, it was a powerful natural supreme treasure. In this era, it was comparable to Zhu Bing of the 9 Tribulations, even if it was a genuine immortal of the upper 3 levels. Facing Zhu Bing of this level, he had to be careful. Qin Shujian grabbed the investiture of the gods, looked at Sanhua in front of him, and said in a deep voice, "Today, I will confer you the title of Star General, and your duty is to guard Zhou Tian's great star array." After saying this, the imperial insignia fell. A force rose from the investiture of the gods, covering Sanhua's body. Sanhua did not resist at all, and let the force cover him.
Then,
Sanhua's name appeared on the investiture of the gods. The moment his name appeared, the investiture of the gods suddenly emitted a powerful aura, as if some mechanism had been triggered, and it began to upgrade.
soon,
The upgrade ended. Because of the rules of heaven and earth, the investiture of the gods was still a 9-seal Dao weapon, but the aura it emitted was even more terrifying. In the lower position, after Sanhua obtained the investiture of the gods, he immediately showed his true form. A divine sword broke through the air and directly entered Zhou Tian's star map in the sky above the heavenly court.
suddenly,
Zhou Tian's star map became much more solid. When Sanhua left, Qin Shujian did not stop him. Instead, he looked at the investiture of the gods in his hand. He did not expect this. After Sanhua was conferred the investiture of the gods directly rose to a new level. However, after thinking about it carefully, Qin Shujian felt that it was only natural. Sanhua is a connate ultimate treasure, and its level is much higher than the investiture of the gods. The investiture of the gods bestows the investiture of the gods with the power of the investiture of the gods. With the power of the connate ultimate treasure, it is reasonable for it to break through the original limit. Unfortunately, because of the rules of heaven and earth, a 9-seal Dao weapon is the limit. Therefore, even if the investiture of the gods' power rises, it will still be a 9-seal Dao weapon. Unless it can break the limit in the future, perhaps it can rise to a higher level. Above the 9-seal Dao weapon, it might be a 10-seal Dao weapon. However, it was not easy to break the rules. The God Slayer said, "Did the Emperor of Heaven just confer the investiture of the gods to him so easily? If he's just pretending to submit, I'm afraid there will be endless trouble in the future." The submission of divine weapons had always been done by blood. He had never seen a divine weapon being conferred the investiture of a divine weapon. He has inherited the investiture of the gods and is already closely related to the investiture of the gods. If I want to, I can crush his intelligence through the investiture of the gods, so there is no possibility of him betraying me. Qin Shujian said indifferently. No one on the investiture of the gods could run away. Only those on the Dao fruit level could break the restrictions of the investiture of the gods. Those below the Dao fruit level, once on the investiture of the gods, there was no way for them to escape. They would either break through to the Dao fruit level, or the investiture of the gods would be shattered. There was no third possibility except for the two. At the same time, in the void outside the realm, in an unknown place, a continent covered by a blood-red light was slowly moving forward in the void. The continent was covered by the blood-red light. It was impossible to see its specific appearance. An evil and tyrannical aura pervaded and spread. Whether it was the void beasts or the void demons, when they saw the blood-red continent, they fled in panic in all directions, not daring to get close. Some of the void beasts and void demons could not dodge in time. When they touched the blood-red light, they fell directly into it without any resistance. The creatures trapped in the blood-red light struggled frantically, as if they wanted to escape. However, there seemed to be countless big hands in the blood-red light, pulling them all in.
Soon,
Everything calmed down, and only the blood-red continent was moving slowly. The whole process seemed to be full of evil and strange. Mo Xia, Luo clan. When the blood-red continent appeared, several demon emperors were the first to receive the news. There is news that Demon Abyss has left the Forbidden Land and is approaching the Great Thousand World. There is not much time left for us. In the black fog, Yervis's low voice sounded. Hearing this news, the other two demon emperors' faces also changed. The barrier between heaven and earth can't be broken at all. Now that Demon Abyss has left the Forbidden Land, we must ask the Demon Emperor. Demon Abyss has left the Forbidden Land. The Demon Emperor must have noticed it. All we can do now is wait for the Demon Emperor's next order. Yervis shook his head. When talking about Demon Abyss, his heart was also heavy. P.S. Requesting monthly votes. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.